Chapter 51. Imperial Palace 2. It had been 3 months since the professor's promotion evaluation began, and the Imperial University Tower was still buzzing with discourse about who would become the head professor. In addition to his unique ability to create, analyze, and understand formulas and theoretical frameworks, de Killeen had the Eucline family behind him. Based on overall capabilities, however, Luna was superior to de Killeen, and above all, Luna was better due to the differences in their personality. The majority held that opinion. Even now, de Killeen was close to being audacious. The other professors also supported her for fear of what it would be like if he became the head professor. In addition, the evaluation of the university tower's criteria were not based on family or status, but one's own values and achievements. Even Adrian, the current chairman, was from a negligible aristocratic family. Therefore, believing in the legitimacy of the selection process for the head professor, Luna fought. She refused to surrender despite the numerous external pressures and threats from the Eucline family, never allowing them to stop her even if it meant at the cost of death. But, today, if that position is not more important than your family, then give up now. Your voice used to always be strong. Now it is weak and withered. Her father's words broke her. The Eucline's immense pressure affected not only Luna herself, but also her entire family. McQueen originally belonged to the 12 traditional families, but they were eliminated from the Berkt Conference 10 years ago. Things had gone awry since then. Her father suffered a serious injury and lost his magical capabilities, causing the McQueen family to lose its prestige. They now had no strength to fight the Eucline. It wasn't something that could be resolved if she endured and persevered on her own. She realized later that their situation had become much more serious than expected. Her father, mother, younger brother, their vassals, household members, and entire family estate collapsed. Drip, drip, rain poured the day Luna visited de Killeen, her sense of helplessness drowning her more than the stream of water that soaked her whole body. That's impossible. At the outer gate of the Eucline residence, one of the best mansions on the continent, a guard stood in front of her, blocking her path. I have something to tell him. Not without a prior appointment. I know, but I need to let him know. I can't let you through. Get out of my way. If you tell him Luna's come to talk to him, de Killeen will... More guards stopped her, pushing her away. Regardless, she argued with them ceaselessly until a familiar voice stopped the commotion. What's going on? De Killeen. He looked at her over the gate, standing under his servant's umbrella. Luna hated that contemptuous gaze of his so much. It's you again, Luna? De Killeen's eyebrows twitched. Luna pushed a guard away and dusted her clothes off. Her lips moved as she glared at him, but her words refused to come out. Regardless, she knew she had no other choice but to declare her surrender. I give up. Give up? Yeah, de Killeen looked down at her like he was looking at a stray dog. I give up. It's time to put an end to all of this. Her voice trembled. Let's stop here. Stop. A mocking tone leaked from de Killeen's twisted lips. His next words disgusted her. Stop what? What? De Killeen pushed her entire family to a cliff. The terms of their bills were absurdly shortened, and their family check became a piece of toilet paper. The whole estate was on the verge of bankruptcy. I don't know what you're talking about, Luna, but... De Killeen walked slowly, every step of his echoing in her ears. Cold contempt rested in his pupils. If you're here to apologize, apologize. His words were nonsensical. Then you must display the right attitude for it. Under his umbrella's shade, de Killeen's blue eyes gleamed. You're too unyielding right now. Luna bit her lip hard enough for her teeth to pierce her flesh, causing blood to gush out. Apologize. Yes. After your family was eliminated from Berkt, the Eucline began to support you, thanks to which your collapse was prevented. Our family forgave the McQueen's arrogant behaviors, like not even expressing gratitude for what we did. However, your entire bloodline is now acting like a dog unable to forget its old habits. Naturally, I deserve an apology. De Killeen's tone was calm and aristocratic. The moment Luna clenched her fist and looked at him, he squinted at her. A tree that's rotten down to its roots will never survive. Just wait and see. Your family will sooner or later wither. He turned his back on her. At that moment, she felt like the world itself had gone crazy, like the sky itself had fallen. She wanted to disappear right there and then, but for the sake of her family, she didn't run away. As he moved further and further away, she shouted. "Wait!" Dechillian stopped, looking back at her over his shoulder. "I'll do it." Luina slowly fell to her knees, her lips dripping blood onto the ground. Splash, mud and rainwater dug into her clothes. Dechillian seemed a little surprised. "I'm sorry. I apologize." Luina bowed her head as she shed tears, though they remained camouflaged among the downpour. In reply, he sneered in a tone of contempt. "Tusk, you're ignorant and pathetic." Dechillian came closer. The rain grew stronger. "Your family is less than 100 years old, no roots, no history. You're no more than damn garbage." His heels landed on her knees. "You were so full of yourself, refusing to acknowledge your place just to protect your pride." He lightly stepped on her as if blemishing a brand, causing her to feel so much more emotional pain than physical she thought her heart was being torn apart. "You are disgusting and dirty to see." Crush. His heels hit her knees again, ripping open her skin and flesh, rupturing her ligaments and spilling her blood. She desperately held back her groans. "Disappear. If you want to keep your family alive, don't ever show your damn face before me." Luina stayed in her place. The guards barred the gate again, and heavy rain covered her body. Her blood, gushing out, mixed with the flowing rainwater. After asking for forgiveness until the rain stopped, Luina submitted her resignation letter at the Imperial University Tower the very next day. 2 days later, she left the Empire, and after a week, everything returned to normal. However, Luina hadn't forgotten the humiliation she felt that day. She never stopped striving and working hard. As the head professor of a kingdom's tower, she wrote several theses, developed magic, earned money to rebuild her family, and gained the respect of the kingdom's people. All of her efforts resulted in her return to the imperial palace. Luina stood in it, feeling as if she was in the middle of the battlefield. When she presented her identity to the guard, he opened the door with a salute. It took 40 minutes to get to the imperial palace from the entrance due to several checkpoints and a change in carriages halfway through. Not long after, they reached the road of modesty that led to the highly defended imperial palace. Luina von Schlott-McQueen. When the emperor called out her name, Luina felt so moved by the favor she showed her that she felt as if she owned the whole world. However, the very next moment, Dechillian von Grahan-Uklein. Upon hearing his name, she looked at him immediately. Luina vowed once more. She wouldn't lose this time. No, she would pay him back double, even triple, the humiliation he brought her in the past. Sharpening the blade in her heart, she quietly walked down the road of modesty. I looked at Luina while we were at the hall of the imperial palace. She seemed difficult to deal with based on her appearance alone. "Don't look." In fact, there was a distinct edge to her voice. I looked away instead of arguing with her. "You've endured for quite a while. I heard that your brain committed suicide 3 years ago." This time, Luina spoke first. I replied, "Don't talk to me." I didn't find any need to be nice to people who were hostile to me. Pretending to be congenial in situations where I didn't know anything would only cause a detrimental effect anyway. This was a simple fact that I realized while living as Dechillian for almost half a year. "We will conduct a light body search." The maids then came. Luina took off her coat and was searched first. The handmaiden looked at her bag filled with items and asked, "What are these?" A present and teaching materials to present to Her Majesty. At a glance, I noticed a magic book and a bunch of educational items. The imperial court wizard next to her inspected their magical properties. "I see. You may pass. Now, Dechillian." Upon being called, I calmly stood before the maids. They spent an exceptionally long time searching my body. They then looked at the items in my velvet bag. "What's this?" "It's a well-thought present for Her Majesty." She took the item out of the bag, revealing a 33-year-old wine considered one of the finest on the continent. Alcoholic beverages require a more detailed clearance process, so we'll have to do a thorough inspection before providing you with the result. "Okay. Tusk, we're here to teach, not to have drinking parties." I didn't answer Luina's words. After the search was over, we followed the maid up the stairs. leading us to the room where the Emperor took classes, which they separated from other rooms due to its nature being a place of learning. In front of the door, with a golden lion carving, the maid knocked first. Knock, knock. "Your Majesty, your magic educators are here. Come in." "Yes." The maid closed her eyes, opened the door, and bent her body forward. The Emperor was revealed sitting in a chair, staring at us. I took a step into the room and paid my respects. "I, de Killeen von Grahan Uklein, see you, glorious Emperor." "I, Luna von Schlottmach Queen, see you, glorious Emperor." "Nice to meet you." Charon, the Emperor's escort and knight, stood behind her like a statue. I heard the maid close the door. We moved a little closer to the Emperor as she raised a question. "Magic, huh, right, today will be our first class. Where do we start?" Luna rushed out. "Before we begin, I'd like to figure out which class and attribute you'd be most comfortable with." "Class, attribute." "Oh, you mean the 8 series?" "Yes." "You don't need to. Magic on our first meeting? No, let's talk." Her eyes widened, seemingly in embarrassment. She looked like she was contemplating how to respond as she alternately looked at the class materials, lesson plans in her arms, and the Emperor. "Sit down. Let's have a chat." As Luna was about to speak, the Emperor pointed to the chairs. I shook my head. "We are your magic educators, chosen to explore magical truths with your Majesty. There is no need for us to stay here unless for a class." I needed to make sure to draw the line now more than ever. I couldn't get caught up by the Emperor. If she were to be lazy, the difficulty of the game itself would rise sharply. My words made her eyebrows rise in an arch shape. I said I don't want to. "Even if you don't want to, it is in the best interest of, and is required by our traditions, manners, etiquettes, and future to do so." The Emperor glared at me. "Talk, talk, talk." She knocked on the desk, looking dissatisfied. Silently, Luna sent me a signal behind her using the wizard code. The Morse code of wizards. "What are you doing?" "Your Majesty won't like you and I'll get caught up in your mess. Damn it." I didn't reply. The Emperor scratched her eyebrows. "Then let's do it this way. Do you guys know how to play chess?" "Chess." I was familiar with its basic rules and opening patterns to some extent. However, that was only due to de Killeen's memory, not Kim Woojin's. Noble hobbies or entertainment such as horseback riding or chess were naturally ingrained in this body. "I'm not good at it, but I know how to play it." Luna answered. A smile appeared on the Emperor's lips. "Good, if so, what do you think? Let's decide by chess. If you win, I'll take the class as you say. But if you lose, you'll have to turn back and leave. Today's class will end at your defeat." Luna looked at me in resentment. I was worried. To what extent could understanding be applied to chess? "All right. Luna, you go first." I pushed her back forward, causing her to jump out as she cursed at me with her eyes. Nevertheless, she soon approached her with her head bowed. "I'm not good at it, but I'll dare to go against your Majesty. It won't matter if you two put your heads together." I shook my head at her words. By observing their match, I planned to figure out whether or not understanding could be applied to it. One-on-one is boring, but fine. Let's start. "Okay." Luna got the white pieces and Sofian got black. Tap. The game progressed slowly. As the thrilling sounds of pieces hitting the chessboard echoed, I familiarized myself with how they moved. Luna paused several times to think about every action she took, while Sofian moved her pieces after just a glance. With that attitude alone, the result of their bout was obvious. An hour passed. Checkmate. There were only black pieces left on the chessboard. I lost. "You are too safety-oriented and too analytical, Luna." "Gosh, it would have been way more fun to play with Charon. Now then, de Killeen." The Emperor looked at me, faint hostility flashing in her curious eyes. She seemed like she was already starting to hate me. "Yes." "You're going to have to entertain me a little, or I might have to punish you." I sat where Luna just did. We only get one chance. "Only one?" "Yes. It was insurance in case I depleted all of my mana. If we lose, we'll have to step back. There will never be a rematch or a comeback." "Okay. We'll do it your way." Those vulgar words tickled my ears. Since I got the white faction, I was naturally responsible for beginning the match. I just moved a seemingly random piece. Soon, the black faction responded to my moves. At that moment, I just acted based on instinct. At some point, however, without knowing it, my eyesight turned blue, almost as if paint had percolated into my pupils. Understanding had been activated. I can't tell what this guy is thinking, Sophian thought. I feel like I'm looking at a wild dog. His moves are rough, incomprehensible, swift, and unpredictable. They're quite strong and ferocious, but crude nonetheless. She realized his unpolished wildness was as sharp as shards of glass. If I'm careless even a little, he will inflict fatal wounds on me. Compared to Luina, he's 10 times more ferocious and intimidating. From his opening alone, he induced a melee and rushed into the offensive. He dug in whenever a chance appeared, and if he could catch any of her pieces, he made it a point to bite them off the battlefield. Sophian moved her bishop while alternately looking at the chessboard and the opponent's face. Tap, tap, as if to catch up, his queen moved immediately, taking less than 3 seconds from conception to launch. She was shocked by his recklessness, but that didn't mean he made a mistake. Sophian peered into her opponent's eyes. The Eucline head watched the chessboard without any movements. Was he hungry for prey, or did he simply like to fight? Whatever it was, his temper clearly differed from his appearance. Humph. However, Sophian knew the weakness of his tactic. Hungry wild dogs, blinded by their aggression, would self-destruct upon stumbling upon the most basic traps. Tap. Sophian deliberately showed a loophole in her defenses that she had steadily built up, creating a trap that looked like an honest oversight on her part. Anyone would look at it and see a delicious, unaware prey out in the open, but the moment they took the bait, they would be surrounded. Sophian kept her face emotionless as she waited for the opponent's move. The dog didn't even stop to think. As she predicted, he was caught. He kept biting back tenaciously, not knowing he was trapped. She smiled. Tap, her knight had caught his queen. With this, the game was over. At least, it should have been over, however. Sophian found it bizarre. He continued his siege in such a dire situation. The game, which should have ended soon, went on longer than she expected. He moved his pieces without hesitation. The Emperor couldn't decipher what the bastard was trying to do. Sophian followed his pace, which was the best she could do in this situation, but he attacked non-stop regardless. She successfully counterattacked and devoured his offensive, but strangely, she felt as if she was slowly falling into a bog. The situation was still, had always been favorable to her. Regardless, she felt surrounded by a strange atmosphere. Her victory was just right around the corner, but she had this ominous feeling of being dragged by him. At some point, he stopped moving. Their battle had now entered the endgame. The Emperor looked at the near-empty chessboard. Why did he suddenly stop? Curious, Sophian tried to predict Achilles' moves. His future actions unfolded in her head. His bishop would take the tile next to her king, and her queen would eat up his bishop, but at his 8th turn. She saw her defeat. If Achilles kept going at this rate, she would suffer from a defeat so unconditional it wouldn't matter what move she took. No, it wasn't a matter of if. He deliberately brought her to this moment. It was what caused the mysterious atmosphere that she couldn't seem to ignore. Sophian couldn't comprehend this exquisite arrangement. Every piece that he left on the chessboard, including their positions, had meaning. Did I underestimate him too much? At what point did he start luring me around like this? The Emperor raised her eyes in silence. She found Achilles looking straight at her. His gaze, which had been staring at the chessboard the whole time, was now fixed on her. He wore no expression. Now all she could do was move her pieces. However, his next move, once again, far exceeded her expectations. Tap, he took down his king himself, causing the white king to fall onto the board's surface. The Emperor's eyes, following the king, widened as she looked back at Achilles. "What are you doing?" "I lost." Achilles gave a simple answer, sounding as if this was a natural outcome. "Your king hasn't been caught yet." "I don't see any other answer aside from this." "Is the answer yours or mine?" Before the Emperor could even ask that question, he stood up. "Since both of us were defeated by your majesty, I, unfortunately, will have to return home today. I will see you next week." They promised to leave without saying a word. There was no rematch or comeback. Achilles faithfully fulfilled his promise, and Sophian could do nothing but glare at his back. Chapter 52, Imperial Palace 3. Achilles left. As promised, there was no rematch or a comeback. Meanwhile, Luina remained in her place. Sofian looked at her. "What do you think of this situation? He seems to be better than me." Although her pride was hurt, she answered honestly. "He's much better. Not only was he better, but our battle was also a lot more fun. You're too much of a coward." "I understand. I'm sorry." "Did you grow up being beaten by someone when you were young?" "No, it's because I only read books at home." Luina took Sofian's words calmly. She didn't show anything on her face. "I heard the relationship between the Euclines and the McQueens isn't that great." "That's right." However, she didn't feel confident enough that she'd be able to maintain her composure against that question. She lowered her head to hide her face. 15 years ago, at the Berkt conference, the former head of the Eucline family attacked the McQueen family head and eliminated him by stealing her father's mana source, ultimately crippling him as a wizard. He then claimed that wasn't his intention, and that such incidents frequented Berkt in the first place. Eucline then demanded McQueen's magic vision, making an assortment of promises that he would give to him once he had gotten back on track. McQueen, at the time, refused. It was a matter of choosing the lesser of two evils. Their family wasn't the first to fall prey to the Eucline's atrocities. Even after Deculine became the head of their household, such actions were regularly executed, and as a result, many magic visions were asleep in the underground of Eucline's library. Luina's primary goal was to get their family's magic vision back. After a long silence, Sofian bowed and looked into her eyes. "Hey, are you crying?" Luina shook her head in surprise. The Emperor noticed her feelings of anger and hatred, which wasn't that hard to uncover. They weren't towards Deculine. Her emotions were opaque and smoky, as if they were covered in dust. She didn't show any shards of it, however. "Luina?" "Yes. Is this your gift?" Sofian laid her hand on the spellbook that she had brought. "Yes," Luina answered proudly. "It was something that money couldn't buy. It's about the magical epiphany that great Elder Dzekton of Berkt had written in his childhood. I'll read it. You may now go too. A promise is a promise." "Yes." She got up quietly and left. Sofian rested her chin on her hand and looked at the chessboard. The room now had grown silent after the two wizards left. However, there was still one person with her in it. "Charon, what do you think of this situation? Even if I engross myself in it, there's no way out." At this point, she had no way to turn the tides around. No matter how much she thought about it, it would always result in her defeat. The only way out of it was to not be in this situation in the first place. Looking at that face, Charon said, "The world is this wide, Your Majesty?" For some reason, it sounded like he was in a good mood. Sofian twisted her lips and glared at him. "I didn't lose." She grabbed her king. In her grasp, it turned into powder. Chiron raised his eyebrows at the manifestation of her mana. "If I had taken it slow, I would have won. I got caught up in his tricks." Sofian was confident she would win if they played again. She simply lost her original pace. "Will my next class start next week?" "The nights will come in 3 days." Sofian closed her eyes without answering and soon sank into her thoughts. Charon didn't bother her either. Is it still too much? "I lost in chess. Of course, I could pour mana into understanding to read her next move and drive her into a corner to a certain extent. However, my entire mana tank was exhausted in 20 minutes. I used every drop I could squeeze out, but I couldn't even finish the game. Thanks to this, I realized something new: the temporary amplification of understanding. During the match, that ability of mine rose to a higher level, helping me fight a battle that I had no knowledge about. However, it was an extremely wasteful act. Now that I was no longer using understanding, I couldn't even remember how I played. It was a different level of expression from learning or studying. I came to the parking lot outside the palace's outer walls, feeling the aftereffects of my magic exhaustion. My car and Luina's car were parked side by side. Those who rode carriages are getting their licenses too late. Really? Well, these days, nobles don't ride carriages anymore. The drivers were talking to each other. Yes, I'm glad I found that out early. Do you know who started this car trend, though? Who? Professor Deculine. All the trends start with him. Even though they both were drivers, the difference was obvious. My driver's back was straight and Luina's driver slouched. "Oh, you're here. It is an honor." As I approached, the two drivers bowed. I nodded and got into the car. Let's head back to the mansion. Got it. My car's engine started and soon left the place. Shortly after our departure, I glanced at the rearview mirror, finding Luina's car following right behind me. I casually looked back. Certain energy was faintly glimmering on its front seat's leather covers. It was a mana trace. I stared at it with my eyes narrowed as it formed the shape of a sentence. Have you abandoned us, Jeff? Yes, it was surprising, but I didn't show any signs of it. I just casually looked around my car's interior. There were no death. Did you leave your post after you parked the car? No, I stayed near it at all times, since we were around the Imperial Palace. Even though Jeff was my driver now, he used to be a mercenary. If the sentence were engraved in such a way that his senses couldn't detect it, it wouldn't just be anyone who did it. Have you abandoned us? Besides, based on the words alone, it was highly probable that it was someone from D'Quilline's original connections. If that's the case, it's a bit annoying. That person probably hailed from the Dark family. Has no one come near it? Or have you heard anything useful? Ah, Jeff nodded as if coming into realization. I heard Luina bought a mansion. She seems to want to stay here now. I looked out the window. In the passing scenery, darkness momentarily fell. I thought it was because of magic, but it was just the shade offered by trees. Is she? I looked in the rearview mirror. Luina's car had disappeared. I opened a book as usual. While reading calmly, I thought about D'Quilline's power. From a player's perspective, D'Quilline's subordinates were obviously annoying. There were many named villains with stronger combat power than D'Quilline, but those connections were very shallow. Even after D'Quilline died, no event revolved around avenging their boss. They simply scattered. In fact, since I became D'Quilline, his network of dark people faded away as soon as I cut off that sponsorship. However, I should think about it. These guys were different. A few names came to mind, but it seemed necessary to refrain from hasty actions until I saw them in person. The night was darker than usual. Turhal, the capital of Iliade, had been busy these days with the opening of Marek and support for demon purification. As a result, Glython at the Lord's castle was still signing paperwork. The competence D'Quilline is showing these days is unexpected. Amid the scratches brought forth by his fountain pen scribbling, a voice flowed in. Glython nodded. I know. D'Quilline's practical skills had already been detailed by a certain incident, but he thought theoretical skills were entirely his. Actually, since he died, his theoretical skills had been cut off too. The symposium, huh? Was it a change of heart, his final move, or a new mindset? Whatever caused it, D'Quilline declared his intention to challenge the symposium. Resolving the symposium in this magical world could be called an achievement to some extent. Of course, it depended on the problem, but at least the 6th, 9th, and 11th problems that had remained unanswered for 15 years were special. Which problem is he trying to solve? That is yet to be revealed, it seems. I wonder what's in his head that made him suddenly desire to do that and oppose the red box suppression. Glython placed the signed papers on the desk, then leaned against his chair's backrest. He looked into the darkness outside the castle and smiled. He's very unpredictable. I wonder if it's because of the Eucline blood in his veins. The Euclines and Iliades were in a cat-and-dog relationship, in a way. Even if it weren't for the incident from 15 years ago, they would have still clashed, killing and being killed by each other. And yet, a strange relationship bloomed between them despite recognizing each other as enemies. What happened to the knight who died in Berkt? He's on hold, but he'll probably remain on hold forever. Glython laughed quietly. Haha, who knew he harbored ill feelings toward D'Quilline? Yeah. Of course, it was the Riak kingdom that instigated the attack on Berkt itself. However, Glython's brother Galak added one more piece to the puzzle to make the raid perfect. Veron. It was easy to manipulate a man's impulses once he had been swept away by his emotions. However, D'Quilline's victory was unexpected. If it were a one-on-one battle in a limited space, he would have had a hard time even against a knight 2 ranks lower than him. You have a very fiery personality, Galak. Shut up. All of this was his brother's doing. Of course, Glython didn't intervene. both superficially and inwardly. These days, there are rumors that Julie and Achilles' relationship isn't as bad as it used to be. I know. The youngest piece of their family is really lucky. Julie should have died in her mother's womb in the first place, but she somehow lived through it and even thrived despite being hit by that curse. It was supposed to be incurable, making Glython wonder how she overcame it. She seems to be a flower that blooms even brighter the more she suffers. She suffered a lot because of Achilles and my family. Rather, it may have been thanks to you too that she survived. Each individual has different origins, Glython laughed. You're too emotional. That's a useless hypothesis. Anyway, you may go. Got it. The shadow that had been talking with him quietly disappeared. Wednesday morning. After waking up, Ephraim took a shower and went out. As she yawned, she turned back without thinking and was soon startled by what she saw. Gosh, don't people get tired? There were a lot of writings on the door. Piss off, towerag, dirty bitch, moron, etc. These days, these childish bullies were getting worse and worse. She thought it would stop if she didn't pay attention to it, but it just raged even more. Are they really nobles? She could already deduce who did it. Beck, Lucia, and Jupern, a gang of children of some viscount with a lot of influence. At first, it was just pathetic. However, it soon became hard for her to hold back when they started doing it to her club members. Childish fakes. Ephraim wiped the writings off with cleanse. Thinking about it, she wondered if true wizards only existed on the Isle of Wizards' Wealth. The saying that one's identity didn't matter in the university tower was just an illusion. For them to stay in it in the first place, practical and theoretical abilities in magic weren't the only requisites. Political power was almost just as essential. Considering the number of professors involved in the faculty review, that was easy to deduce. Sigh. Ephraim left the dormitory and walked through the campus. There were quite a few people on the school grounds these days because the postponed school festival continued until late at night. All roads were paved, and there was plenty of entertainment around, such as pubs, parties, plays, and horse-riding matches in the night department. Thud! As she made her way to the theater, her ankle got caught in something. Ugh! Ephraim fell, a drink spilling over her body. Sticky fluids dripped from her hair and robes. It hurts. Gosh, who did this? Ephraim expected an apology, but she only heard curses. Upon looking at the person, she soon understood why in front of her was a bunch of nobles led by Lucia of Countess Leviren's family. She glared at Ephraim, who had fallen. Sigh. As she sighed, Ephraim got up, brushed her entire body with cleanse, and grinned. It's you again. Again, my ass. Hey, keep your eyes open when you walk. I spilled my drink because of you. Lucia pressed her finger against Ephraim's chest. She was furious, but thought it wasn't worth responding to this bitch. Even if she fought here, she would be the only one who'd get penalty points. And if the impartial Achilles intervened, rumors about them would run rampant again. Kids these days weren't afraid of him. They didn't know his notoriety. Maybe it was because he didn't directly give disciplinary actions or penalty points. Okay, I'm sorry. Are you done? Ephraim mocked her and turned around. Behind her, as she walked, she heard their voices. That bitch doesn't know her place. As expected from the arrogant bitch who messed with Sylvia at the beginning of the semester. Who does she think she is? That's right. Did you know her dad was under that professor until he killed himself? At that moment, Ephraim's legs stopped. Huh, she stopped. Hey, I think she's mad. What will that moron even do? I guess it's true that she has no pride. Hey, stop, she'll go running to that professor again. We'll get in real trouble. These days, though, I heard the professors are joining hands. If Professor Achilles becomes the head of the Planning and Coordination Office, our lives in the tower will turn into hell. He's trying to keep us in check. Oh, that's right. That's right. My dad was originally going to just let it slide, but after hearing he defended the enemy during the Berkt conference, he signed against him. To them, Achilles was the villain. Achilles was, of course, a villain to her as well, but they were no different than him. Morons. Ephraim, who had barely managed to hold herself back, started to walk away again. Upon reaching her destination, she bought a ticket and looked at it. 9 o'clock tomorrow night. Portrait of a melancholic day. Afterward, she ate alone and asked the members, whom she ran into on the side of the road, to pretend not to know her at the tower. At 3 p.m. she returned. Class A today, their classroom was a wide and high open area. Eferen had grown used to such subtle changes now. She stood alone without even paying attention to the members of the club who were glancing at her. Nice to meet you. At 3 o'clock, Dequilline came in, standing in front of the debutantes indifferently. The projects I gave you can be submitted even after the final exam is over, so don't rush and push yourselves too hard. Those words were pleasing to the ear. Dequilline continued. The topic of today's lecture is the practical use of pure elements, also known as series application. Series application. It was the final boss, the focal point of his lectures. The wizards were quite tense. Series application might seem a bit complicated, but there is no need to think about it in a complicated way. Let me show an example. Dequilline hit the pavement with the bottom of his cane. Thud, with that sound, wildfire appeared all over their vicinity. Its appearance and the way it swayed exuded elegance. Since its beauty was more like art than magic, the debutantes unknowingly stared blankly at it for a moment. This wildfire is a combination of ordinary fire and wind, but... One of them stuck to Rondo. It startled him, but it wasn't hot at all. Move. Rondo did as instructed, and his eyes soon widened. His body felt light. Afterward, the wildfire clung to the other debutantes, including Eferen. They reacted the same way as Rondo. That is what happens when this magic is applied to an auxiliary or support series. If its elements of wind and fire are in perfect harmony in its formula, a special effect, which goes beyond simple combinations, occurs. It was essentially a bonus effect. Originally in the game, if a player used wildfire combined with a support series, it affected movement speed and attack speed. That system also existed in this world. Wildfires can be used for destruction, of course, but it works best when used as an auxiliary skill since each of its pure elements has its own unique advantages. It was a fact that Eferen didn't know. No, looking at their reaction, it seemed that all the debutants weren't aware of it. It was a common game system for Kim Woojin, so in a way, it was only natural for him. It is necessary to use pure, harmonious elements in appropriate series according to their characteristics. Doing so isn't difficult at all. You just need to remember the circuits of the magic you learned. He radiated mana and created Fireball, a basic destruction magic. The key to this formula is the Fireball-S circuit. If I were to remove it, the flame that served as its core disappeared, and the pure element Thundercloud took its place. You only have to connect its core circuit after transplanting it into a pure elemental formula. A moment of silence enveloped the entire classroom. The sudden combination of circuits and magic made them feel like their minds temporarily became paralyzed. It's only natural for you to find it hard. You'll only get it once you've done it yourself. Eferen. Dequilline called out Eferen. As she recalled what she had just heard, her body trembled, and Sylvia, come to the front, both of you. The first and second placers in the midterm exam would serve as good examples. Let's try applying the series to any pure elemental magic. The two nodded. Eferen tried to apply Thundercloud to destruction magic. Her magic created Thundercloud in the air, but snap. Dequilline flicked his fingers, disrupting it. No, it was erased immediately, magical interference. Huh? Wrong, again. She didn't feel mad when he told her to do it again. However, no matter how inexperienced she was in the series of magic, the fact that it was deleted just by flicking his fingers hurt her pride. Okay. Eferen nodded and condensed mana once more. Again? Snap. Dequilline once again deleted her magic and told her to do it again, so she did. Sylvia began casting magic as well, but, again. Snap. Again, snap. That's a bit better, again. Snap, his again was endless. Chapter 53, Fetal Movement 1. Eferen and Sylvia, who were trying series applications, were now damp with sweat. Sylvia somehow succeeded, but Eferen was one step behind. Beck, Lucia. Come. I asked other debutantes to apply the series as well. Confused, the next duo just drew formulas. There was more intuition than logic in their magic, and only intuition. Enough. I turned off the crystal protecting the classroom. It dismantled its barrier and reverted the scenery around us to a regular lecture room. This shows where your levels are. It's my fault for overestimating you. Sit down. The debutantes did as instructed. I was going to teach you to see magic as logic, not intuition. Without a theoretical framework, intuition is bound to get lost. Of course, this was an unfamiliar method, making it difficult for them to comprehend it. It was even more annoying since they would probably go back to square one. I didn't spare any efforts to teach them. In fact, there was probably no professor more faithful to education than I was. For it, I scoured all methodologies, the game system, and even books from ancient theocracies, which was rumored to be more magically prosperous. Logic was emphasized in the past, and even I thought it was systematically correct, but in reality, only 5 or 6 people could embody this teaching. In short, reality hit me in the face. I will explain it in detail again. There were several bonus systems in the game. Attribute bonuses, series bonuses, combination bonuses, harmony bonuses, etc. Attribute bonuses, of course, meant boosting performance and reducing magic consumption when using attributes that matched the character's talent, and series bonuses were no different. However, harmony bonuses were a little more complicated. To start with, this game system made learning magic much more complicated than just reading magic books. It required practical proficiency in magic and the process of internalizing it, which the people at our company called understanding. That process took a reasonable amount of time, even within the game. Harmony bonuses were activated when the resonance between one's understanding and practical proficiency was perfect. I wanted to teach the debutantes how to activate them. Observe closely. I picked up the chalk with psychokinesis and drew Wildfire's formula on one column of the blackboard and the formula of the auxiliary series on the other column. I then wrote down the process of connecting them in detail. This lecture had turned into an analog class. Wildfire has a special effect when applied to an auxiliary series. Memorize the entire connection between this formula and the circuit. If it was difficult to understand, then they should start at memorization. Debutantes were required to be at a certain level to enter the Imperial University Tower, considering there would be many cases where they would have to memorize difficult information, and more often than not, understand it afterward. When applied to the Destruction series, Thundercloud has a special effect. Memorize this too. I wrote about the logic of transplanting each pure element into its appropriate series. Scratch, 6 pieces of chalk moved at the same time. In consideration of readability and understandability, the colors of the core circuits were also different. I hoped this level of detail would help the students. Metal rust, which treats metal like a blade, unexpectedly exhibits a special effect when applied to the summoning series. You do not yet know its mysterious depth, so just memorize it. I wrote ceaselessly, stopping not even for a moment until the blackboard was filled with geometrical objects that seemed like patterns. There were almost thousands of lines and circles applied in a total of 8 magical series. It was a 2-hour class. Time's up. There was no answer. Half of them looked exhausted, and the other half was still taking notes. A little later, I looked at the blackboard. The huge, nearly 5-meter-high blackboard was covered in formulas. Feel and bask yourselves in the sense of helplessness that cannot be solved by intuition alone. You have to experience that to know what you lack and need. They would keep thinking their plan was plausible until they hit a barrier that it couldn't break. Once they did, they'd change their mind. I am going to give a simple exam right away next week. Be sure to prepare for it. I added coldly. Looking at the clock, I noticed it was already 11 seconds past 6 o'clock. I left the classroom feeling very uncomfortable. As soon as the class was over, Ephraim headed to the library. Today's class was quite complicated and difficult. Logical application of Wildfire to Support series. Logical application of Thunderclouds to Destruction series. Logical application of Metal Rust to Summoning series. Important efforts must be made to look at it logically, that is, magically according to Dequillin in Magic. If intuition was walking, logic was paving the way. Intuition alone could get one lost. Of course, Basic magic and problems could be solved by intuition alone. Rather, it might actually be more efficient to do so. The knowledge they had accumulated thus far would help them gain insight anyway. However, when faced with difficult magic that couldn't be controlled by intuition, or when delving into the magical unknown for the first time, the path called logic would prove far more useful. This is hard. It was great information and could prove extremely functional in the future. The problem was its difficulty. At first, it started with something as simple as 1 plus 1. She felt like she just closed her eyes for a moment and opened them to a blackboard full of geometric formulas and mathematical operations that explained the circuit. How the hell did Dequeline know about this? No matter how much she thought about it, so many things contradicted her father's letter. If so, did he also have some degree of theoretical competence? Or did he learn from her father? Or did he hire another person to take her father's place? Let's just study. After learning and familiarizing herself with it, she decided to try again later. Professor Dequeline seemed to be openly challenging them. 12 o'clock p.m. She started at noon, but by the time she finished studying like crazy, it was already past midnight. Ephraim put her thick notebook in her bag and stood up. On the way back to the dormitory, she passed an alleyway. Finding people holding an interesting conversation in it, Ephraim instinctively hid. She identified the round silhouette to be Professor Relin. The thin silhouette was Professor Sire. What do you mean Luna is missing? Is that really true, Professor Sire? Yes, it is. I even watched her leave after completing Her Majesty's lessons, but her whereabouts became unknown after that. Why now of all times? No way, no way. Head Professor Dequeline? SHH. Ephraim's eyes widened. The Magic Association has more information. Her disappearance is still a secret. There is fear that the tower will fall into chaos if it leaks out. Yes, but this is an odd time. The countersigning is coming soon. Ephraim, who had shut her mouth and held her breath, gasped as soon as they left. Kidnap? Missing? Even Ephraim knew about Luna. Not only was it the name she read in her father's letter, but it was also one of the special, talented people of the current magic world. No way. The professor's words weren't always true, and she couldn't give herself the luxury to worry about others. What was her current bank account balance? She received support worth 100,000 elnis at the beginning of the semester. Of these, 85,000 elnis were spent for magic books, writing instruments for wizards, departments, and events, and 5,000 elnis were sacrificed for food, so her remaining money was only 10,000 elnis. Miss Luna. As soon as she arrived at the dormitory, the housekeeper in the lobby called her. Yes. Ephraim walked over to her as the housekeeper raised her pointed glasses with her fingers, but contrary to the impression she made, she was the most reliable person in this building. I have received several letters addressed to you. Take it. I didn't put them in your mailbox since the other kids might rip them. Oh, yes, thank you for always keeping an eye out for me. You're welcome. Ephraim saw the letter as she climbed the stairs. One was a letter from her hometown, and the other was... Ephraim's eyes became the size of a ping-pong ball. It was a sponsorship certificate. She hurriedly opened it and found it was worth 100,000 elnis again this time. Wow! The deed shone like gold, causing her pupils to gleam. By any chance, did this person hear that I finished second in the midterm exams? Does this mean for as long as I maintain my grades in the future, he'll continue to support me? Ephraim smiled brightly and put the certificate in her arms. Then she looked at the letter from her hometown. As soon as she finished doing so, she turned around and ran to the magistrate. Hey, she yelled as she opened the door. The administrative staff who greeted people at night looked at her in annoyance. Yes. I received my sponsorship certificate today. The letter from her grandmother contained something that she didn't know. 300,000 elnis was deposited to them in the name of donation money. She thought her grandmother was just saying, "We're okay now. Thank you, and I'm sorry. You don't have to worry about our family anymore." Is it anonymous again? Yes, anonymous. The staff yawned and nodded. Ephraim urgently added, "Do you just take it? You're not in a good situation. People don't usually reveal their names when they donate anyway." It was a cold statement, but it was true. Rumors about the so-called crazy commoner Ephraim had emerged. The staff glanced at Ephraim and added a few more words when she found her gloomy. If you want to do something for the donator, write a letter. A letter? Yes. Even if it is an anonymous sponsorship, the letter will be delivered. If you're lucky, they'll reply. You already received 200,000 elnis from them. That's a lot of money. Ah, yes, that's right. Okay, Ephraim pondered and then nodded. That person might hate the letter, but if so, they simply won't reply. There was nothing wrong with the act of sending a letter itself. Hey, what about the paper? Don't you provide one? Ephraim inquired. You have to bring one yourself. We only take care of the letters themselves. It shouldn't be too much for you since you already received 200,000 elnis anyway. Got it? Thank you. The next day, at the Imperial University Tower, where festivals and parties were in full swing. Tilda with the parade music flowing in from the outside, the correlation between runes and circuits, which I had been focusing on lately, was almost complete. It was an accurate interpretation. A total of 14 runes were used in question 6 of the symposium. Among them, only 3 were usable as circuits. It seemed that I could solve the symposium based on this study. I sealed the documents with magic and put them in my briefcase. Unexpectedly, it caught my attention again. The untitled notebook. What it contained wasn't visible even with my man of great wealth and the villain's fate. I took it, looked closely at its cover, and opened it up. I put my hand on a page that had no text written on it. I couldn't just think about it. I'll know once I do it. After preparing myself, I slowly imbued it with mana. You disappoint me. A stern voice rang out. I raised my head. A man who resembled Kim Woojin but more imposing was looking down at me. Deep contempt glistened in his eyes. This is your last chance. Achieve results in Marek. I tried to answer, but the pressure of his magical power didn't even tolerate the movements of my lips. When I opened my tightly closed eyes again, it was already dark inside the mine. A slender back was carrying me. Who are you? I asked. It will be fine. That voice was familiar. I opened my eyes wide and identified the person, Julie. She was always beautiful, but she didn't seem to be doing well. Her blood was dripping from her rib. How did things go? D'Quilin asked Julie. He tried to retrieve something from Marek on his father's order, but there was a problem. A surprise attack caught them off guard. Yes, my colleague retrieved it. We will meet on the ground. D'Quilin let out a sigh of relief. However, after a while, a terrifying magic wave rang out. His face was calm, but his heart was beating like crazy. Protect me. Yes. You just have to protect me. Yes. Only me. She put him down on the road nearby, and he leaned against the wall in pain. Fulfill your duty as a knight. His useless words showed no impatience. Julie replied to his will in a tone that assured him she would save him even if she sacrificed herself. Yes, I will protect you. She turned around, clutching her sword, and D'Quilin looked at her back. At that moment, from the other side of the mine, a powerful magic force rushed in like a wave. My whole body returned to reality with the sensation of being swept away by a tsunami. The memories and emotions of that day flowed clearly. It was D'Quilin's past. I pressed my temples with my fingers. It wasn't mine, but the anecdote settled as if it had always been my memory. Completion of Independence Quest. D'Quilin's diary. Store currency +1. Eucline attribute growth apparently. This notebook was D'Quilin's diary. Damn. I didn't want to suffer from those memories again, so I left the tower and wandered aimlessly around the university's grounds. This is your last chance. The voice's identity became clear. It was his father's voice. It wasn't my father. No, it was mine. Was it because I reconstructed D'Quilin's memory? His father looked like my father. Push. My shoulder collided with a passerby. Oh, I'm sorry. He went away with just one word of apology. I didn't like that unnamed guy. However, thanks to him, my turbid heart calmed down to some extent. Watch the play Tilda. We're running out of tickets. Tilda, I noticed a theater nearby. Oh, will you watch it? We have tickets left. A soliciting college student handed me a ticket. I nodded and went inside. As I sat blankly in my seat, the play began. Dad, I'm sorry, not a single part got into my eyes and ears. Sniff, sniff. The person next to me seemed quite moved, though. Sniff. With her occasional sniffling bothering me, I glanced at her and was slightly startled. Ugh. It was Eferen. I handed my handkerchief to her without a word. Huh. Oh, thank you, Sniff. She wiped away her tears with it and gave it back. I threw it on the floor. You can't kill him like this. Too many people will die if that happens. My father suffered that same fate. I began to hear the lines a little too late. I didn't know what it was about, but it seemed like a revenge play, and the actress's acting was actually pretty great. It was also very good in terms of aesthetic sense. Not long after, they announced a short break. Eferen ran away, covering her eyes, and came back shortly after the second part started. Thank you. She glanced at me, whispered, and offered me some popcorn. With my robe's hood, she couldn't seem to see my face. I love you, but if you stay by my side, you'll experience far too much difficulty. I am the criminal who killed him. I'm the murderer. The play reached its climax. She bent forward as tears streamed down between her fingers that gripped her face. Ugh, sniff, sniff. She seemed to be more emotional than she looked. I took another handkerchief from the inside pocket of my suit and gave it to her. Oh, sniff. Thank you, sniff, sniff. She sounded like a boiling kettle. Unable to stand it anymore, I got up and went outside. I then walked back to the campus, sat on a bench, and closed my eyes in the dark to clear my mind. I didn't know for how long I stayed like that. Main quest. Fetal movement. Completion reward. +2 store currency. Suddenly, a message about the main quest appeared. 11:00 p.m. As soon as the play was over, Eferen came out, finding magic fireworks exploding in the sky. It looked like there was going to be a party, but she wasn't interested. Sniff. Oh, I cried too much. She walked back, wiping her tears with the handkerchief a gentleman gave her. She tried to return it because it seemed expensive, but when she got back to her senses, he had already disappeared. Turning around, she found Julia calling out to her. Something happened? What? At the beginning of the semester, that formula in the dormitory. No, just come with me. Julia grabbed her hand and ran. After they arrived at their destination, Eferen was horribly surprised. What's this? A part of the dormitory was covered with a dark red barrier, including the area frequented by commoners. At the beginning of our semester, there was a red formula on the wall of the dormitory. Isn't that it? Wee-ying boom. Fireworks constantly lit the sky. From afar, the people's cheers echoed loudly. What's going on? The professors who received the report late came running. Relin, Sire, Letran, and Kamel were having a meeting at the magic tower when they heard about it. As soon as they saw it, their eyes widened in astonishment. What kind of magical force is this? This is why I didn't want to reopen the Mountain of Darkness. The chairman? Where is the chairman? Relin asked Letran, probably on the floating island. Why did it have to be today? The professors didn't even dare enter the barrier. In a situation where they didn't know what awaited them inside, they shouldn't act hastily. What made matters worse was that the concentration of magic force that Eferen could feel from the outside right now was unusual. A gas mask was mandatory. At the very least, they should at least be accompanied by an active duty knight to maximize safety, considering even the professor's magic would be persistently disrupted by the dark magic. They were just being reasonable. Professor, what are you going to do? Eferen shouted to them. Relin was startled, but he soon closed his eyes. Why are you asking me that, kid? There are people inside. At Julia's reply, Relin bit his lip and looked inside. He seemed worried, but already in middle age, he had a lot to lose. Who discovered this situation first? That's not the problem right now. Not a problem. Oh, Professor Sire, aren't you from the destruction department? My body is weak. Wait. The knights will come soon. If they waited, they might get here early. He knew what was going on inside there. With a sigh, Eferen handed Julia her bag and handkerchief. Why is this? I will go. What? No! At that moment, a voice thundered through the place, slicing through the people like a cleaver. What's going on? His gelid tone seemed to freeze the muggy air. Everyone turned to him. Dekulin. He appeared behind the crowd, relaxed. There was a chill in his gaze as he made his way through the area, his posture remaining so upright he seemed arrogant. Soon, however, he wore a faint frown when he discovered the barrier that even the professors were frightened of. This commotion has gone too far. That was it. That was all de Culleen had to say about the situation. He walked silently, replying to no one and waiting for nothing, the sounds of his footsteps domineering the area as he proceeded towards the barrier. The professors looked at him as he moved without hesitation or fear. He was the embodiment of aristocracy. Chapter 54. The interior and exterior of the barrier were clearly different. I managed to find out that much through understanding, but its effectiveness in the absence of any information wasn't that great. Even though it prohibited everyone from passing through, I easily walked into it by tearing a small part of it using my cane, and was soon met by a gloomy and dark atmosphere seemingly littered with red lanterns, making it a little nauseating to look at. Calm down, everyone. Hearing a voice coming from deeper into this barrier, I tracked the source down, passing through the dormitory hallway and reaching the hall on the first floor. The children gathered under the guidance of the housekeeper. "Professor?" one of them yelled the moment they spotted me. They looked like they had found their savior, but I couldn't be friendly to them. The dark mana inside the barrier was getting on my nerves. "I'm safe, Professor, how?" "Shut up." Their noise subsided in an instant. I looked at the housekeeper. She wore pointed glasses and wrinkled clothes, her shoulders covered in dust and her nails torn. I also checked on the students' conditions. Their robes were in tatters, and their expressions screamed distress. I noted down all the trivial cues. "Is everyone here?" There seemed to be more people upstairs. The housekeeper said. I opened my briefcase, and 10 wood steel shurikens rose and soared up the stairs to the upper floor of the dormitory, while the remaining 10 descended to the basement of the building. I closed my eyes and detected their sounds, allowing me to pinpoint their locations as if I was using a sonar device purely caused by an attribute bonus. Since I had a talent for fire, earth, and metal elements, I realized this unique ability while interacting with something I cherished. The wood steel flew up the stairs and went through each floor, informing me whenever they found humans through resonance. At the same time, they tore apart non-human creatures without mercy. In the end, I detected 4 people in total, 1 on the 5th, 6th, 9th floor, and 10th floors. I steered the wood steel to guide them. What is this? What are you? Are you asking me to follow you? I can't. There's a monster outside. They were hesitant at first, but I soon calmed their fears down. Follow me. The wood steel vibrated, creating a frequency that transmitted my voice to them. Hearing my words, they went straight down the stairs along with the wood steel. Whoa! Not long after, they plopped down as they breathed heavily, finally reaching the first floor. The housekeeper pushed them aside. She asked, "Can we go out now?" It's a well-crafted barrier. It's hard to get in but harder to get out. It's most likely twice as sturdy as a common barrier, considering mana is applied to it. Deconstructing it through calculation and operation was possible, however. If I could locate its core through my vision, I'd be able to immediately delete it. However, it would take a long time. The amount of mana here was swiftly overdosing the wizards. They wouldn't be able to hold on much longer. Then, I pressed the length of my index finger on my lips, hushing them down. Everyone in the area stopped moving. Amid the silence, I looked at every robed wizard, closely observing their condition and attire. The barrier's activation couldn't have been possible through formula alone. The caster who operated the switch had to be hiding somewhere. Their expressions showed no hints of them being the culprit. To disrupt the instigator's camouflage, I activated psychokinesis, causing their hair to rise like waves. Huh. My lips twisted, forming a smile as I felt my contempt rising from deep within me. I approached one of the barrier's captives. In a person's body, your own strength builds up. Hence, even if you hide your appearance and origin, you cannot hide the duration you've been staying in that vessel. The stronger you become, the harder it is to hide your true identity. I reached out and touched the housekeeper's hair. Ashes flow from you. Buried in her hair, traces of it reacted to my psychokinesis. Did you come from a volcanic pile? You're from the ashes, aren't you? Everyone looked at her, startled. Standing still, she raised her glasses without a word and took off her mask. I didn't show it, but I was surprised. The instigator of this main quest was also a named character. You have amazing deduction skills, but it doesn't change anything. Don't you know? She smiled, but her stare remained sharp. Your kind is killing every single one of ours, calling us ashes in the process. I quietly listened to her, forcibly suppressing my anger. Blue veins were running around my neck, and the inside of my mouth felt swollen with swear words. It was a side effect of mana addiction. That's why you more than deserve to die. She muttered and activated her magic. Woo-wong, tremendous amounts of mana rose from the floor, but that was all she could do. I activated Understanding while glaring at her magic formula. In an instant, my field of vision broadened, and the world around me became clear. The magic that flowed through my brain accelerated my calculations and amplified my thought process. Time seemed to infinitely slow down. I grasped the magic she was about to activate in an instant and located its core circuit through vision. Simultaneously, I dismantled it by using Understanding. Fizz, only a tiny spark erupted from the magic she worked so hard to cast. Asshole. She immediately conjured another spell, but all it took was one glance from me to destroy it. This time it just launched a snowball. Fuck. Of course, I was consuming crazy amounts of mana in this process, but my abilities accepted the mana around me as its power supply at a similar rate. I broke every single attempt she executed, laughing at her mockingly as I did so. Within the mana-filled barrier, the combination of my understanding and vision allowed me to directly observe and interfere with almost all magic. In the end, she gave up on magic composition. It's because of this, I approached her as she grew silent, that you are called ashes. Sounding as if I was chewing and spitting out each word, I continued. You are garbage, scum that's been rejected by society. You lack the composition to be a human, and you lack the appeal to be a beast. I lifted my finger and placed it on her forehead as she looked straight at me. The magical cohesiveness that was collapsing behind her was immediately cut off. Your only talent is to squirm. That won't help you be relieved of your poor and dirty roots. Sigh. You're quite an eloquent speaker, aren't you? If you're that good, why don't you break up my barriers before they die? Don't tell me you can't do that much. She smirked and looked up at me. Since you've gone that far, let me tell you the fault of your inferior brain. I didn't avoid her gaze. I accepted it with further contempt. You were so infinitely stupid and dull that the barrier you created devoted itself to the building rather than the space itself. 10 pieces of my wood steel saved the survivors, but the other 10 descended. They attached themselves to the core support of the dormitory's steel frames, the pillars supporting the entire building, by drilling a hole in the underground rock wall. That in itself evidences that your intelligence is incredibly lacking. My wood steel generated heat all at once. Although a bit too late, she finally realized what I meant. You want to destroy the building to break the barrier. Are you really that excited to die? I let out a sigh as a certain personality flaw swelled from the bottom of my chest. I bent down a little, moving my lips to her ear, and whispered, Arlos. Her shoulders trembled. Don't think that I don't know you. I took a step back again, finding her staring at me in shock. One must always be aware of who their opponent is, after all. At that moment, my wood steels, finally generating enough heat, melted the columns. As soon as a fire was ignited, I activated my basic fire control. Boom! The sudden amplification of the fire's intensity mixed with the wood steel's heat caused an explosion. The building's collapse soon followed that blast. Losing its core support, it sank into the ground as dust clouds rose. The barrier that encompassed broke in the process. GGRRRGRGGGRR, shattered wreckage poured down like rain. In the midst of its demolition, I looked down at her calmly. It's time to go back to your main body. At that moment, she expressed even more surprise than when I said her name. My wood steel pierced her neck, and the light from her pupils disappeared, turning her into a mannequin. Puppetry, that type of specialized magic, was Arlos's signature. It could only be manifested when one's manipulation series and harmony series were high-leveled. The wizard screamed. I tilted my head slightly and looked back. The lights were smashed, allowing darkness to cover the whole area, but their lives were intact. I had rendered their deaths impossible by putting them under the protection of my psychokinesis. Cough, cough. I didn't stop them from having fits of dust-induced coughs, though. Ephraim was detained outside the barrier, with Julia and the professors almost forcibly shutting down her idea of charging into the commotion. Whoa, they're collapsing? Ephraim's eyes widened when she heard those words, allowing her to witness the destruction of all 3 dormitories. Boom. The explosion that demolished them was compact, compressed, preventing the fragments of the steel frame from bouncing off. Instead, they just beelined to the ground, passing through the huge dust cloud that spread out. The blast itself lasted only for a blink of an eye. It was already too late by the time the knights arrived. They tried to head straight into the scene, but they saw something moving inside before they could charge in earnest. Immediately switching tactics, they assumed a formation as they held their swords up. Deucalion walked out unscathed from the heap of rubble and debris, bringing the barrier's victims with him. "Are you okay?" Deucalion gave the wizards to the knights and dusted off the dirt from his body. "Take care of them." "Yes." As he was about to leave, he felt the gaze of the professors watching from afar. He went towards them. There were still a few things he had to tell them. "You call yourselves professors of the Imperial University Tower, yet a strange barrier is enough to make you feel so much fear you retreated this far from the scene." The professors couldn't even meet his blatantly spiteful gaze. Pathetic. Reflect on it. He stared at them with the disgust they deserved and then left. "You, Professor." Sylvia came up to him. 2 people actually approached him, but she pushed one away. "Are you okay?" A voice without intonation and pitch, a stable tone by itself. "It's dangerous here. Leave its premises immediately." He patted her on the shoulder and passed by. His mental fatigue was excruciating, which was only natural. He abused his mana far too much. Everything had already been settled by the time the clock struck midnight. "Is he strong?" A person asked from a bench not far away. Arlos nodded. "He's much stronger than expected." "Isn't he a greenhouse plant?" "For a flower, he's a powerful one, even the way he talks and the way he looks." As she replied, she ran through her long hair. She tried to pretend that she wasn't affected, but her belatedly rising fever heated her face. "What should I pay attention to?" "He's extremely smart. He dismantled all of my magic and even discovered I was using a puppet. I couldn't even try hand-to-hand combat hastily. Just by looking at him, I could tell his body was pretty sturdy. I must be vigilant. What about your mission?" I was partly successful. Her goal was to absorb life force through the barrier she created. Wizards were excellent materials for making puppets. Hence, after turning their spirit and mana into liquid, she planned to deceive them. That's all I got. Arlos pointed to the fluttering, inadequate-looking liquid inside a bottle. The path of faith is this difficult. It even hinders saving one's body. The unknown figure answered with a heavy voice. A slogan they always uttered. Faith. And composition. Arlos managed to hold back her laughter. The poor bastards followed an already dead god whose resurrection would most likely always remain a fantasy, never becoming a reality. Even so, these fanatics never stopped working desperately for it. Next is the Marek, Arlos. I know. However, they still shared the same purpose as her, hence she found no need to rush and earn their spite. Arlos immersed herself in contemplation. Deucalion. She found the head professor unexpectedly difficult to deal with. His skills far exceeded her expectations. No, his mysterious magic interference and dissolution was really close to divine. Is there anyone who can complete magic in front of him? Was his existence itself the wizard's antithesis? Even though she was inside a puppet, she frowned while thinking about it. The next day, I sat on a chair in the mansion's study and closed my eyes. A system window hovered in front of my eyelids. Understanding status beginner, psychokinesis, basic fire control, basic earth control, metal enhancement. 33% progress. It was a kind of visualization. I looked at the psychokinesis inside my body through vision. Several magic, including metal enhancement, fire control, and earth control, were attached to it. After arranging the traffic on its circuit, I polished it a little more. I felt like the pain was crushing my whole body, but it was bearable. I endured it for about 30 minutes and then slowly opened my eyes. Last night's main quest came to mind. Should Arlos be seen as a villain? My top priority right now was to clear the main quest. It didn't matter right now if doing so would allow me to return to Earth. No family was waiting for me back there, but if I didn't clear it, the whole world, including me, would perish, so I had no other option. However, in order to clear it more efficiently and swiftly, and to lower its difficulty, the good-natured named characters had to become stronger, or the evil named characters had to die. So far, I had only worked on the former, but now I had come to realize that the latter was also quite effective. It was thanks to certain memories I had grasped in Deculine's diary. "Master, the Public Safety Bureau has arrived." I heard Roy's voice after he knocked on the door. "Were they here because of the incident last night?" I got up and went down to the first floor, finding a familiar face waiting for me by the entrance. "Long time no see." Deputy Director of Public Safety, Lilia Primian. Her indigo hair was tied down in a ponytail which complemented her expressionless face. "What's going on? Have you heard that Luina is missing?" "Missing?" I shook my head. "I haven't. Now that you have, I need to ask some questions." "It was reported that she was missing and our current main suspect is—" "Are you suspecting me?" "No, this is just an investigation. A human being is missing, Professor. We have no choice but to conduct this." Lilia Primian. "It would be in your best interest to realize who you're talking to right now." It didn't feel good to be suspected of a crime I didn't do. Anger was welling up inside me. Nevertheless, she continued speaking calmly. "Again, it's not suspicion. It's just that you're most likely the last to witness her. Luina disappeared shortly after leaving the Imperial Palace." I quietly recalled the events of that day. Inside my car, darkness fell for a moment as I looked out the window, watching the scenery pass by on our way back home. I thought it was magic at first, but I soon realized it was just the shade of a tree. When I turned my eyes to the rearview mirror, Luina's car was already gone. Wait, was that really the shade of a tree? Was it because I was magically exhausted at the time that I didn't notice it? "I think we're done here. Thank you for your cooperation." Lilia nodded and slid her notebook into her pocket. I then watched her walk through the garden, guided by my servants. I returned to the library again. My eyes dawned upon a certain monotrail on my desk. I was certain it wasn't there before. Nevertheless, I immediately interpreted the sentence. "We are still following your orders." At that moment, a bad thought flashed through my mind. Chapter 55, Fetal Movement 3, Imperial Palace Garden. "How was your lesson today?" Julie asked cautiously as she stood amid a winter scenery. Glancing at her, Sophian answered, "It wasn't that bad." The Emperor had been postponing her night lessons, using the closure training as an excuse, but no one even knew what kind of training that was. "That's fortunate." Julie swallowed a sigh of relief. "However, your chess skills were unexpected," Sophian replied. The two played chess during their break time, but the night was no match for the Emperor. Julie's skills in it were at an amateur level. "I had high expectations because I heard you're his fiancé." "You mean Professor Deculine?" Julie's eyes widened, not expecting him to be brought up. "Do you have any other fiancé?" Sophian teased. "No, learn a bit from him. Give him some use." The Emperor recognized Deculine's chess skills, but Julie wasn't even aware he played chess. "I really don't know anything about him. Also, my little brother wants your fiancé's autograph." The Emperor held out a certain book to Julie. "You mean Prince Creto?" "Yeah, ask him to sign here. It's been a while since I've acted like an elder sister." Understanding Elemental Magicit was a magic theory book written by Deculine, notorious for its excruciating difficulty and exorbitant price. Julie also bought it with her own money to learn more about him, but she couldn't read more than 10 pages of it. "I'll let him know." He said it was just too complicated and difficult. "My brother's probably just joking, but make sure to tell him anyway." Noted. Knights usually didn't talk much, a trait of theirs that Sophian frowned upon. "You may go." "Thank you. From now on, try not to give me short answers. I know you're here to give me lessons about knighthood, but you can let yourself be someone I can talk to." "You mean friends?" Julie's eyes widened. The Emperor smiled and nodded, making her take a deep breath to hide her overwhelming emotions. Woo-woo-woo-woo-woo. Enough. You may go now, my friend. Thank you, it's been an honor. Sophian returned to the imperial palace with her knight, Charon. She respectfully bowed as they left. Please come this way. After that, a maid guided her. She walked through a separate passageway in the garden. However, the maid soon disappeared from her sights, a eunuch taking her place. Greetings, Lady Julie. I'm Jalen. What's going on? Julie looked at him with suspicion in her eyes, to which Jalen simply smiled brightly. Can I borrow a moment of your time? I have a favor to ask for the stability of the imperial palace. The other knights are already waiting for us. Despite being dubious of him, she followed after him anyway. We're here. At an annex in the vast and complex imperial palace's eastern corner, Raphael, Sirio, and Gwen greeted her, looking as confused as she was. Oh, Julie. Gwen waved. Julie responded with a bow and stood by their side. Sirio grinned. Now that you've gathered us all, can you tell us what's going on? Of course, Jalen replied in a soft tone. I have a mission to ask of you. A mission? Yes, monsters are lurking in the basement of the Imperial Palace, and an Imperial insider wants you to deal with them since he can't take care of it himself. Is it an Imperial order? Raphael asked, his voice sounding as low and heavy as usual. It's not an Imperial order, but consider it a test of loyalty. We'll report it as the knight's tribute to the Imperial family if you can resolve this. Naturally, you'll be rewarded handsomely. The knights pondered about it for a moment in silence. After a while, Gwen pointed to Julie. If she's going, that person needs to go too. Who? Dekiline. That name seemed to make Jalen slightly uncomfortable. Gwen chuckled. Even the eunuchs, who often went through all sorts of hardships in the imperial palace, were afraid of the name Dekiline. He was also famous for his political power, and his prestige was increasing day by day. Hence, even though Jalen was one of the Emperor's closest aides, he couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. It sounds dangerous, so you should ask your fiancé for permission at least, right? She was still pointing at her, who hurriedly shook her head. And no, it's okay. Right. His practical skills are unquestionable. Raphael intervened, cutting off Julie's words. Sirio also agreed with a silent smile. The eunuch looked dissatisfied, but he soon nodded, regaining his brightness. Yes, I understand. We'll try to talk to Sir Eucline. Gwen found that answer absurd. He called them by name, but Dekiline was Sir Eucline. Maybe that's why family backgrounds are important. You do that. Julie, let's have dinner tonight, on me. She answered bluntly and left the palace with Julie. We are still following your orders. I made a plan to contact them. Naturally, I would never show impatience or surprise. Likewise, I wouldn't express any emotions, words, actions, or behavior that could be used against me. Double-crossing people was easier than breathing for me anyway. It had already melted into this personality and body. These arrived, Master. While I was contemplating countermeasures, Roy came and handed me a couple of documents. Luxury hotel renovation. Black Crane future trade routes and plans overview of the mission of the mercenary corps. These were the results of the businesses that I invested in. Reading them using understanding, I found out they were settling without any problems. I'm done. Take it. Yes, they brought good news, but I had no time to think about them right now. I returned to thinking of a way to reply to my old connections after sending Roy back. There was no need to think. Master, a shadow gleamed in the corner of the study room. It wasn't an actual being, but a magical illusion. Nevertheless, I looked at it calmly. What I said next felt almost instinctive. Guide me. Asterisk, there was no utopia in any world where people lived. Even in the capital of the most powerful empire on the continent, light and darkness definitely coexisted. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow. Auckland, at the southeast of the continent, was a slum that had been in decline since the mine closed. Dekiline's former henchman took me to a dark and damp cave beneath it. Thick moisture enveloped my body as pale lamps fluttered as if they were about to break. I see you, Master. Two individuals of opposite genders knelt in the cave to greet me. The similarities in their looks made me think they were siblings. Tell me, what was my order? I asked as a test before they could say anything. You commanded us not to let Luina enjoy her freedom if she set foot on the continent. Looking at them, I found no was fortunate. They kidnapped Luina by themselves, after all. However, the problem was what these guys wanted. I continued to pretend to be indifferent. It was premature. We know. The man's tone carried disrespect. We thought you had abandoned us. I suspect that's the case even now. Are you rebelling against me? No, if you have abandoned us, then you are no longer our master. Hence, this is not rebellion. I never abandoned you. Guide me, I replied calmly. The two stood up, and we moved with the man in front and the woman behind me. Not long after, we arrived in a cavern too wide for the number of people present. Luina was tied up in the middle of it. Her face was covered with what looked like a black sack, and her hands and feet were held cuffed. She looked like a war prisoner. What treatment did you give her? We injected antimatoxin. Antimatoxin was a famous magic drug for wizards due to its ingredients that acted like stabilizers. However, when injected directly into one's blood vessels, the victim would lose the ability to use magic for at least 3 days. I looked at the duo. Good work. The airflow subtly changed the moment I uttered those words. They tried to hide their expressions, but they couldn't fool my eyes. They were dissatisfied. Thanks to that, I figured out they weren't out here to gain my compliment. I glared at Luina, who had become a wreck. Beside her, a red airstream glimmered. A death she had resolved herself to kill me. The biggest problem of it all was just beginning. I pondered about all probable developments I could think of. If I were to say, I'm here to save you, Luina. Whoever kidnapped you has nothing to do with me. She would answer, I don't believe you. Her death variable wouldn't be resolved. I could leave this room and let her free without revealing my identity. Even so, she would still doubt me, and the siblings would grow even more suspicious of me. Her death would also linger. If I were to kill her, her screams would fill the cave. After that, she would disappear forever, thus eliminating her death to the suspicious siblings. Above all, the amazing quests I could get in the future from Luina would be buried with her. Although she was an enemy from D'Quilline's point of view, she was, in essence, a named heroine. Her death would make me suffer severe damage. I raised the stone floor of the cave with psychokinesis, creating a chair out of it. Influenced by my personality, it became as beautiful as an antique. I sat on it and considered all of the possible outcomes slowly and thoroughly. Right now, I couldn't say that my situation was ideal, even as empty words, but I still had the upper hand. After all, the command they followed itself was issued by D'Quilline. Here. The man handed me a ledger. A smirk appeared on my lips as I thoroughly read the content. Hell, D'Quilline was so damn vicious. Was there even anyone else in the world who was this tenacious? This is fun. As I read through these amazing sentences, I had no choice but to admit it, resolved peacefully. That's why Luina wallowed in the unconscious as if swimming in the sea with her bare body. However, she was growing nauseous. She could no longer recognize the passage of time and could now only endure out of her anger. She already knew who was behind this. Only a fool wouldn't know. D'Quilline. Whoosh. As that name rolled over her tongue, the sack covering her head came off, the light causing pain in her eyes. Her mouth and ears had their plugs removed as well. Ugh! Luina exhaled and bent over, looking at the shoes of her abductor as she gasped, then gazed up slowly. Shoes that had no stains or dirt. Custom-made and neatly folded trousers. Legs crossed while maintaining his characteristic angle. A high-quality tie that didn't fit the damp air at all. There was no mistaking his identity. Her heart sank as their gazes met. A cool shadow loomed over his sharp features, making his hazy pupils look even more terrifying than birds of prey. You. Her voice trembled. Fear, terror, anxiety, the feelings she didn't want to admit she had gnawed at her weakened mind as she felt heavy pressure seemingly crushing her body. Don't ever set foot on this continent ever again, D'Quilline uttered. There was no intonation or pitch in his tone. I told you that, didn't I? What did you come back for? She remained silent. He sneered. I heard you even bought a mansion here. Do you think you'll be able to get away with this? I am still the Emperor's magic. Don't even bother. D'Quilline stretched out his palm, and he folded his fingers one by one. 5, 4, 3, 2. Magic vision, Luiner replied. There was no change in his expression. I have made several return requests before. I paid all the money my family borrowed with interest, but you didn't even pretend to listen. Deucalion listened quietly, but his indifference remained. He was like a monster without emotions. Right, but you know. He pulled documents towards him with psychokinesis. Luina, there is something called compound interest in this world. The amount I lent you 15 years ago was 100 million elnis. The annual interest rate was 20%. The contract that they signed 15 years ago and was still in effect today. He licked his lips as he looked at it. Your total now comes at 1,570,260 elnis. What? If it were a single interest, it would have only been 400 million, and the contract clearly stated that it was simple interest. However, McQueen's debt was turned into compound interest due to the special clause the Eucline family hid in their contract like a trap. Your family still owes us 1,140,722,060 elnis. Oh, right. I have to add 200 million in interest for every year that passes without any payments being made on top of that. Luina found it beyond absurd and outrageous. His words made her feel like vomiting. I'm going to file a complaint with the imperial family. Such nonsense. Imperial law allows appeals up to 10 years after signing a contract. That window has closed long ago. Moreover, since this happened in the late Emperor's era, an official inspection is no longer possible. He sincerely admired the real Deucalion's tactics. Aside from this debt, he had laid several traps acting like time bombs within the McQueen family. The foreclosure may start tomorrow. Luina glared at him. He was still expressionless, his lack of emotion terrifying her. You really? He didn't let her go. She hadn't been forgiven. Rather, he was waiting for the time to take her down. He wanted to let her fall from the highest position, most desperately, to despair until she died. Keep talking. I'll listen. At that moment, all the tension in her body was released. Now was not the time to be proud. I have no intention of becoming the head professor. No, it would be a lie if I say I didn't want the position, but the professors in the tower were trying to nominate me. I don't care. Luina made desperate excuses, but Deucalion shook his head. Her heart raced. Her mouth dried up. Then what the hell do you want? Do you want me to kill myself? She bit her lip. However, his next words were strange. Be the head professor. No, it was bizarre. Luina's eyes widened, not knowing what the hell he meant by it. Tears began to stream down her cheeks. I will be the chairman. His pupils, which were still cloudy, gained blue phosphorescence light as his dark stare landed straight at her. If you help me get further ahead from where I am now, then when I become the chairman, I'll return McQueen's vision and free you of all your debt. I will also give you the position of head professor. Luina couldn't understand his intentions, but you have to make an oath to me. Deucalion wrote several demands with his fountain pen, then got up. First, you'll never tell anyone about what happened today. Vague words such as swear allegiance weren't effective. The more specific the content, the stronger the breacher's punishment would be upon breaking their oath. Second, keep the terms of this contract for 5 years. Deucalion presented the document he had written. Luina was astonished. It was almost no different from a master-slave contract, the constraint that Deucalion put forward being the destruction of her mana supply. This is ridiculous. You still haven't come to your senses. We'll talk again in 3 days. No, wait. With one glance from Deucalion, they covered her eyes, mouth, and ears once more. Leaving Luina, who had fallen into darkness again, Deucalion turned around. After finishing my work here, I looked around the underground cave without saying a word. What will you do if she rejects the oath? The man asked. I looked at him. Then I'll have to kill her. This was the best I could do in this situation. If I didn't even threaten her, she would kill me. However, she will not refuse. She desires to live. The villain's fate, you. Acquired reward. Store currency +2. The notification came up late. According to it, I neither overcame nor avoided Luina's death variable. Rather, I treated it, which probably meant she had become determined to take the oath. Will it be okay? What do you mean? The McQueen family helped assassinate the former head. So that was what happened. McQueen wasn't just a victim of the Eucline family. Since I didn't know that, I just shook my head. It wasn't Luina's doing, was it? The current head of McQueen is Luina, but the sit-in system is enough. That aside, I looked around. This place was too dark, damp, and dirty for anyone to stay in. Have you been living in this cave all this time? Yes. You promised us money. Out of nowhere, the woman who had been silent so far yelled. The man tried to stop her, but she didn't back down. You said you would give us money and release us when we're done. Money? Yes, great wealth. Slap, a sharp sound rang out. The man had hit his sister. I apologize. The younger of the two sniffed as she lowered her head, her elder brother glaring at her. It's okay. For now, come to my mansion. It's too dirty here. They were very talented. Man of great wealth informed me so. I wouldn't let such capable individuals go to waste. From today on, I'll be certain to make full use of you. Of course, I will pay the promised remuneration as well. The woman's eyes widened. However, you'll have to discard all orders I issued prior to this day. Thank you, thank you. The duo quickly knelt. Above all else, I looked down at them. Don't use your hand often, it's demeaning. Chapter 56, Routine 1. Dequilline's last command was to wait in January. There were hundreds of informants at the time. They were based in Auckland, the underworld, and other shady areas. Ren was one of the organization's main pillars. However, Dequilline's orders were cut off at some point, leaving them with no guidance or support. With no money, the factor that united them, to back them up, their numbers dwindled from 3 digits to 2 digits in a month. Another month after that, only 2 of them were left. They each went to different places. Ren and Enin had nowhere else to go. The siblings remained in the dirty cave, waiting, just in case, for the return of their master. Of course, material reasons factored in on their decision. Since the number of members had decreased, they thought that the promised compensation would also increase significantly. Ren and Enin bathed away the dirt on their bodies and wore the suits that Dequilline bought directly from a tailor shop. Those were the first high-quality fabrics they had ever felt graze against their skin. After that, they trimmed their hair at the salon. Embellishment proved to be their best disguise. Ren and Enin entered the Eucline mansion as completely different people. Dequilline introduced them as his new direct servants. At the same time, the warehouse built on his vast land was neatly remodeled into a private residence. Enin, the younger of the two, looked at the mansion with surprise in her eyes. It was the first time in her life she'd be living in such a clean, colorful, and refreshing residence. I can have a dog here. Oh my God, this mansion has a front and backyard. Did such a place really exist on the continent? You shouldn't have done that. Ren reprimanded Enin, but she didn't answer. Her cheek that he slapped was still swollen. Did it hurt? Why wouldn't it? Still, you shouldn't say things like that, at least in front of the master. Although they weren't paid for 6 months, they persisted in fulfilling the orders he had given. If there was nothing to eat, they ate rats, and they did everything themselves because they didn't have money to hire people. Do you still believe in the master? Enin asked. Ren shook his head. No, Dequilline showed mercy to Luina, who wasn't a real noble. However, he hadn't yet forgotten the face that Dequilline showed when the former head of the Eucline family died. At that moment, he was definitely delighted. His face contorted with unbearable ecstasy, displaying an expression that rendered Ren unable to determine if he was smiling or crying. I'm still wary of him. We never know if he's going to get rid of us after using us. He was a man who accepted his father's death as happiness, a dangerous existence that lacked the key that separated humans from demons. Still, the master isn't hostile to our clan, and he kept his promise. Enin replied. Ren swallowed hard as he looked at the bag in his arms. Dequilline doubled the amount he promised them. He was currently carrying about 5 million elnis. It was the first time in his 21 years of living that he owned such a large amount of cash. Let's keep 10,000 elnis, Enin said. Then let's give the rest to our family. Do we even need 10,000 elnis? What? We've worked hard for 7 years. We should be rewarded too. Only 10,000. I don't want any more than that. Ren bit his lip, pondered about it, then nodded. Okay, Ren and Enin's family was big. Even though they weren't blood-related, they were all family. Their existence was the reason they didn't let go of their last thread of hope called Deculine. It didn't matter if it was rotten or had been discarded by the heavens. Even when their future looked bleak, they crawled and held onto the thread, all for the sake of, let's do that. The red box. Hello, Tilda Maho here. Did the arrival of this letter surprise you? Even if it didn't, please still read it to the end. By the time of this writing, I have already arrived safely at Urin, thanks to you. Every waking day of mine has been peaceful and calm since then, but sometimes I find myself remembering the past, which causes my heart to sink. If it hadn't been for you at that time, Professor, I would have already turned into ashes. Oh, ashes. Ugh. I feel scared just thinking about it. Tilda, turning into it means I wouldn't be able to write letters, speak, and eat sweets after all. Again, thank you so much. Oh, I heard from Charlotte. You said this was a deal. A deal. If you put it like that, this entire ordeal feels a lot colder, but I definitely felt your warm heart. I believe you didn't help me just because of what you can gain from me. Regardless, if I can be of any help to you one day, then I'll do my best to serve you. In preparation for that day, I started learning sword skills and studying magic. Although I'm still weak, I don't want to keep being a burden. Tilda, that aside, last time you said I didn't have to act anymore, right? I can't tell you how surprised I was to hear that. I was very, very surprised. Seriously? But you know my feelings weren't fake. Please just know that, finally. Oh, right. This time we'll start a huge project in the Principality of Urin. It's centered on regional redevelopment, and I think excellent prospects await it. I planned it myself, after all. If you want to, you can invest in it. If you don't think it has potential, just ignore my offer, Tilda. I'm really not asking for investment because we don't have enough money. Oh, Charlotte is here. I started writing at 2 in the morning, but it's already 7. There are many more things I want to tell you, but I will have to cut this letter short. Please reply, Tilda. I'll send you another letter next time. Tilda, from Princess Maho of Urin to Head Professor Deculine, my savior sitting in the study. I read Maho's letter. It was written in a way that resembled how she spoke. It was very cute, unlike my current job. How can a letter be this boisterous? I smiled and put it in the drawer. I took the ledger Ren gave me afterward. My face stiffened. Leviron's exploitation of territory details of the Ballard family's remittance to Killeen was raking in the weaknesses of all kinds of nobles. He also ordered the execution of dozens of evil deeds. It was him who was responsible for accelerating Auckland's fall into poverty. He planned to buy that land at a low price. I didn't know what for, but the reason for it was probably great enough to activate the man of great wealth. I still wasn't quite sure what the past to Killeen had done beyond this. I couldn't even begin to imagine how much money that bastard threw in the dark. Like Ren and Enon, I wasn't sure if I should see our relationship as a great help or toxicity that should be culled immediately. Now that I was in his body, I couldn't just cover it up, hide it, or ignore it. Those sown seeds would one day germinate at will. Hence, I have no other choice but to use what he left behind. Twisting Deculine's karma in a direction conducive to the main quest was the best I could do. Knock, knock, master. Julie is here, Roy said behind the door. My body instinctively moved upon hearing those words. I was already right in front of the door when I came back to my senses. I turned the doorknob and pulled it open. Across the doorway stood Julie in armor. Her neat white hair was left untied, creating falls made out of snow powder cascading down behind her. Have you been doing well? Julie's lips trembled as she awkwardly attempted to smile. I laughed quietly. Come in. No, I can't. I said come in. Okay. Julie tried to come in, but I blocked her immediately. I changed my mind. Let's just talk outside. I realized a tad too late that I also needed to stop feeling this way myself. Julie simply nodded. All right. What brings you here? I have been given a mission. A mission? Yes. Julie put her hands together, squirming in place. That's, you see, I got an unexpected opportunity to become the Emperor's knighthood educator, right? Right. Did Her Majesty issue your task? Yes. She said Prince Credo wants your autograph if possible. Julie held out a book to me. When I saw the cover, my face blushed for a moment. Old Deculine's writings. It was very embarrassing. I can't do that. Oh, is that so? Julie accepted my response too easily as I looked at the book up and down. I felt sorry for the Deculine of the past, but using its paper as bonfire fuel would have been far less of a waste than putting his writings on it. He probably knew why. He deliberately twisted the theories in it to make it sound more complicated and difficult before publishing it. Please let the prince know that I'll be coming up with an amendment soon. I'll give him a copy of it once it's out. Of course, with my autograph. Okay, thank you. Julie gave a knightly curtsy. She placed her right hand on the front of her left shoulder and bent her body at an angle. Then I'll be going. She left without saying much. I didn't call her back either. However, amid her retreat, her legs stopped moving, causing her white hair to flutter out. She seemed to be pondering about something beyond my awareness. She mumbled. Not long after, she turned to me. Would you like to play chess? She asked shyly. Both her cheeks were red. I could already tell what happened between her and the emperor. Sure. I needed to practice anyway. I had read a few chess books and had seen many notations played by masters, but there was no better training than putting what I learned into practice. Follow me. I led her to a seat in the mansion's garden, under the shade of a tree. Julie sat in the chair and looked and blinked at me out of sheer confusion. She was waiting for a chessboard. However, instead of getting one, I created it by pulling up stones from the ground and neatly decorating it with leaves and flowers. I put all my heart into it. Whoa, that's amazing. The way she looked at it in childish admiration was cute. Let's begin. Yes, she put her hands on her knees and took a deep breath. I'll start. Tap. Julie moved a piece with a needlessly determined face. Checkmate. Defeated in 15 minutes. I only consumed 300 mana. What happened? She looked around the chessboard, a mixture of shock and confusion in her eyes. She had no idea how the situation turned out like this. Look, you shouldn't have moved your bishop here. It was too early to do that. I kindly taught her. Julie nodded, seemingly convinced she made a mistake. I see. That's impressive. It was a move I never imagined. By any chance, if I'm not being too rude, one more match. Sure. Thank you. One match became 2 matches, and 2 matches became 3. Julie challenged me 4 consecutive times, but she was defeated before she could even pose a threat to me. You're really bad at this. I'm sorry. Keep showing this disappointing side of yours every time. We'll grow apart more easily that way. I joked, causing Julie's eyes to widen as she stared at me. She pouted, which kind of made me feel like my words saddened her. Is that so? But in my knight order, I'm ranked among the top 3. You seem to have talent. Anyway, let's call it a day. You and I have to go to work. Got it. I got up as she vigorously responded to my praise. You can have this chessboard and pieces. Get better at it while you remember today's defeat. Oh, wow, thank you, Julie answered with a smile. She seemed to prefer gifts with sentimental value rather than ones filled with only material value. Ainz slept on the couch of their club room. He. She licked her lips and smiled sweetly, a fragrant scent entering her nostrils and an overwhelming meaty taste spreading throughout her mouth. Rohawk, you bastard, come here, you chubby. She tossed and fell from the couch in happiness. Ugh, her tailbone fell first on the marble floor. Pain coursed through her body as she stood up. Phew, that's embarrassing. She sighed. Due to the collapse of the 3rd dormitory from the incident 3 days ago, she was forced to stay in the club room for a while since she had no place to live in. She had been frantic until yesterday. Her notes were in her bag, which was a relief since it was with her when the incident happened, but she nearly lost all of her father's letters. Fortunately, she found them unharmed, thanks to the magic that coded them. Ainz yawned and went to the bathroom. Splash, splash. After splattering water over her face, she returned to the club room and opened her notebook to study since the exams were coming. Before she could, however, the door swung open. Iffy, look at this. Not only Julia but also Ferret, Rondo, and the other club members came in. What? Look, they spread a large picture on the desk. It was a vertical photograph of the 3rd dormitory, which had cleanly collapsed. All the rubble around it had been removed. I didn't like the fact that they attacked it first, you know. But anyway, look at this. These black marks here. Julia took out a pen and connected the marks on the site, forming a magic formula. She infused mana into it just like she would with any other formula, causing magic to manifest. A sentence appeared before them. Look forward to the retribution of the ashes. The moment will come when your weakness will be exploited. Look at it. Isn't that a declaration of war? No way. It was a little creepy, but it was a bit unlikely. No matter how powerful the ashes were, they wouldn't dare attack the Imperial University Tower. What do you mean, no way? Look at it. Even the structure of its formula is completely different from what we learned at the tower. That was true. It used an unusual spiral formula that deviated from the norm. From what she heard, the ashes often used it. Aren't we supposed to tell the professor? I think so too, but will he believe us? We still have to tell him. If we don't, more commoners will be dying. Those cowards. I don't even know why we're the ones being attacked, considering the aristocrats were more at fault. Ephraim understood Julia's sentiments. Based on their professor's attitudes alone, she swiftly realized they wouldn't change unless they stepped in. Okay, let's at least tell them. That's not a bad thing, right? Leave. Stop with the bullshit. I already have a lot of things going on. Get out of here before I give your club a penalty. Bang! Relin slammed the door, the gust of wind it created messing up their robes and hair. Julia clenched her teeth. That fat professor, gosh. See? What did I say? We have to do it ourselves. I think I've grown a lot magically these days, you know, so? No, Iffy, there is still one left. That professor. From Sire to Relin, all the middle-ranking professors closed their doors on them, but they knew they still had one more option left. They looked at each other and swallowed hard. Head Professor de, her hands were damp with sweat. Just looking at the nameplate on his door made her breathing and heartbeat faster. Phew! Ephraim took a deep breath. Behind her, the CRMC members cheered. Together they knocked on the door. Knock, knock. The door opened. At first she thought de had opened it, but it actually opened by itself. It was almost as if it was already ajar in the first place. Huh! Through the gap, Ephraim pushed her head in. A woman with short hair was rummaging through de office. Ephraim yelled, "Who are you?" "Ah." "I'm sorry, I didn't do anything." The woman stumbled over as she screamed. She was so startled that tears started forming in her eyes as she looked at them. "What?" She soon frowned, however. "Who are you guys?" Thud! Just then, a spellbook that fell from the drawer slammed against her head. "Ouch!" she groaned, tending to the sore spot on her scalp. Her pain soon turned into rage, which the woman expressed through yelling, her eyes wide open and her eyebrows furrowed. "God damn it!" Surprised, Ephraim and her fellow club members stepped back. "Who are you?" "Don't come closer or I'll report you." "What do you mean, who?" "I'm the younger sister of this office's owner." "What, younger sister?" "Yeah, you scared me. The real question here is, who are you? Come here." Ephraim hurriedly lowered her head as Uriel showed pretenses of wanting to smack them. "Oh, I'm sorry. The door was open." "Forget it. I'm a senior much older than you, okay? What did you come here for?" "No, before that, what's your name?" Uriel pointed to Ephraim, scratching her head as if it still hurt. Answer quickly. Don't annoy me. This still hurts. Hurry up before I claim damage compensation." "My name is Ephraim." "What?" At that moment, Uriel's face stiffened. "Ephraim Luna?" "Yes." She looked lost in thought for a moment. By the time she regained her sense, she had already forgotten her anger. "I'm Uriel. What did you guys come here for?" "Huh, oh, that's..." At that moment, ding, outside the open door, they heard the elevator's arrival. Hastily, Uriel closed the office door. "Hide?" "Huh, why? Why are you hiding? You said you were his sister." "No, I came here secretly without telling him. Gosh, why did he come back so early?" Uriel infiltrated the office to find out the truth behind the rumors circulating about de kidnapping Luna. It didn't matter how much she thought about it. If Luna went missing, there was no other plausible suspect other than de. Even if she didn't want to doubt him, she had no choice but to be suspicious of him. It was really hard to imagine, but if it were really de who did it, she would have to come up with a countermeasure. We can just leave? Stop talking and hide already?" Uriel hid under de desk. The space underneath it was quite wide and was surprisingly hard to get caught in. Following her example, the CRMC members each found a place to hide. Chapter 57. Routine 2. Uriel hid properly, but Ephraim and the other members couldn't find a good place that would keep them from being found. Frantically pacing around the room, they decided to just go for the nearest option they had, no matter how poor a spot it was for concealing themselves. One hid behind the door, another hid behind a hanger, and Ephraim made herself float and clung to the ceiling like a starfish by using psychokinesis on herself. Slam! Deucalion opened the door, closed it behind him, and hung his coat on the hanger without lifting a finger. Professor, how should we proceed with the common class this week? Just leave the paperwork and go. Yes, sir. He came in with his assistant professor, but Alan soon went out. Not long after, Deucalion stopped in the middle of the office. Everyone held their breaths. Deucalion, seemingly deep in thought, momentarily tilted his head upward, finding Ephraim on the ceiling. Ah. Ephraim laughed bitterly the moment she was discovered. Apathetically looking at her, Deucalion dismantled her magic. Whoa. Before Ephraim fell, she slowed her fall using fluid manipulation, allowing her to land painlessly. Deucalion was a little surprised, considering he consumed 300 mana just by meddling with Ephraim's psychokinesis. She only showed her talent at the beginning of the semester, but her magic completion level was still like a beginner's then. Considering Deucalion's own skills had also improved to some extent during that time, she grew quite rapidly. Was it because she was a named character? He felt something close to jealousy, but he quickly brushed it off. All of you, come out. Deucalion called out the other CRMC members. Not long after, 4 debutantes found themselves standing before the head professor, who was staring at them intently. Intrusion into my office is grounds for disciplinary punishment and in extreme cases expulsion. I'm sorry. Julia was the first to cry out and kneel down. Ephraim, Rondo, and Ferret followed her example. There's no need for an apology. Just tell me your reason for doing this. Oh, that's... Ephraim thought about their situation. Uriel was hiding under Deucalion's desk. If she sold her out, they would be able to get out of trouble somehow. However, she was loyal to a fault. We wanted to show you this. She took a picture out of her pocket and gave it to Deucalion, who used psychokinesis to receive it. After we activated that formula, it displayed a message in the air. Look forward to the retribution of the ashes. The moment will come when your weakness will be exploited, it said. A warning from the ashes? Yes, presuming that's what it is, we came to tell you as soon as possible. He looked closely at the photograph. Ephraim thought he would react the same way as the other professors. The ashes were their Achilles' heel, after all. This is worth extenuating the current circumstances. However, his response far exceeded her expectations. He even nodded, letting them know he understood why they infiltrated his office. Even so, trespassers must be punished. Moreover, his presence still felt gelid, but his voice had clearly softened. Deucalion looked at them. This isn't an issue, debutantes, like you should be worrying about. Even if the ashes are involved, only professors or higher should deal with this. The other professors didn't even bother listening to us. Ephraim clenched her fists in anger. I know, that's to be expected from those old dogs. His statement surprised everyone in the room, but there are many other professors in this tower. Most, if not all, of the Imperial University Tower's old professors had allowed their magic skills to stagnate, since they focused mainly on their research and projects. However, among the new professors who had just entered their mid to late 20s were trustworthy named characters, such as Jennifer of Harmony, Kelladon, the Glasses Holder, and Grant. Find Kelladon. He'll be able to help you. In the game, Kelladon was made to be the player's assistant during the early stages of their journey. He would lead Ephraim and their club well. I'll give you 1 penalty point. Moreover, you may not acknowledge this discovery as an achievement of your club. Yes, thank you. You may go. Ephraim and the others left with their heads down. Deucalion walked around and sat down in his office chair, then looked at the picture they gave him. Look forward to the retribution of the ashes. The moment will come when your weakness will be exploited. Rank 5 Intermediate Boss Event. Baron of the Ashes. Intermediate Boss Kill Reward 1 Item Catalog Store Currency +2. It sounded grandiose, but it wasn't necessarily special. Deucalion was an intermediate boss himself, and there were dozens of others with that title. However, this particular event was rather difficult. Without the help of named third parties like the professors, the player would have to overcome it with named students. In that respect, this tower had the biggest problem. There was no player. A player was an outsider who utilized the system and could gather named characters as support. There's nothing I can do about it. Dequillin went out of the office to make preparations for it. About 5 minutes passed before Uriel sneaked out of the desk. Phew, that's a relief. She was about to dust off her body when she realized there was no dust. Her brother had some crazy level of mysophobia. She thought he'd probably turn into a ghost that would haunt people until they cleaned their respective territories. Uriel sighed and opened the door. Uriel, Kaya, A voice from right next to her made her heart stop, almost making her convulse as she clung to the ground. Dequillin looked down at her, his eyes seemingly finding her actions pathetic. What's going on? Oh, no, nothing. You should have said something if you knew. Gosh, my heart. I asked what's going on. He helped her stand, then removed everything on her clothes with psychokinesis. Uriel, pouting, stuttered. Hey, about Luina? Are you talking about McQueen's Luina? Yes, I'm just asking this as a precaution, but you didn't kidnap her, right? There are rumors circulating that you did, but that's just bullshit, isn't it? He didn't say anything. He didn't even pretend to hear her. Uriel corrected her words. You didn't kidnap her, did you? I heard Luina would be released soon. Huh, come again. Leave. Dequillin entered his office, leaving Uriel outside. Alone, she pondered around his words. Luina would be released soon. Luina would be released soon. Luina would be released soon. Her eyes widened, finally realizing the nuance contained in his words and tone. That crazy bastard. That meant he kidnapped her. Sylvia was studying magic in their mansion. Dequillin. Pure element theory Dequillin. Magical disaster analysis Dequillin. Magic to see through logic Dequillin. Series applied. The organized version of Dequillin's lectures was divided by subject in her bookshelf. The notes she was engrossed in were also a review of his lectures. Knock, knock. Her concentration was disrupted. Sylvia stared at the door as it opened, revealing a familiar face. Glython. Oh, were you studying? He laughed and scratched his cheek. She narrowed her eyes at him, but soon shook her head. It was time to take a break anyway. Ha, that's good, sweetheart. He entered and looked around her room, frowning at the notebooks on her bookshelf. Dequillin? Yeah. I've heard rumors that the head professor's lectures are famous in the university tower, so I guess you put a lot of effort into organizing them. Yeah, it helps a lot, she said calmly, but he still felt discontented deep down. I think it's better to learn practical things from him rather than theoretical. He'll also be teaching us that. We'll start this week. Is that so? Glython couldn't even predict Dequillin's skills anymore. 3 days ago, he broke the Devil's Barrier by himself, so rumors of his practical combat ability also spread to the magic world. Even the chairman didn't deny his prowess. Professor Dequillin's actual combat power, I think, is just below mine. It was amazing, she said in an interview. He was right below Adrian, a monster who would soon become an archmage. At first, those words probably just sounded like bullshit meant to flatter him, but many young wizards soon believed it, growing fearful of him. Dequillin's actions so far had been very unconventional, after all. Keek. The door opened again. As Glython and Sylvia looked at it, Gilland, Sylvia's half-brother, emerged. A potato came too, Sylvia uttered. I'm not a potato. Gilland slammed the door open and yelled. Mini potato, she responded, her expression remaining the same. I said I'm not. As his 2 children chatted, Glython listened to them without much thought as he looked at the art notebook on Sylvia's bed. He stiffened. Opening it out of curiosity, he found a face he didn't want to see sketched in it. There wasn't just 1 or 2 of them. Every page of it was occupied by Dequillin. Glython put her notebook down. With mixed feelings lingering inside him, he looked at Sylvia, who kept saying, Potato, sweetie. Yes, I'm going to the cemetery. Do you want to come with me? I already did. I see. Glython forced a smile. Then I'll go alone. Get along well with your brother. Take the potato, too. I'm not a potato. There is a really noisy potato here. He went out, leaving the two children behind. Glython felt dazed for some reason. It felt like the whole world was moving away from him. "Shall we go, my lord?" He didn't even respond to the driver's words. Not long after, the car moved and soon reached the cemetery. "We're here, sir." Glython got out of the car and walked down the path of the cemetery, bearing emotions that shook his entire soul. After a few moments, he stopped in front of a tombstone. Sierra von Elleman Iliade. It was clean, and the lawn around it was well maintained. Of course, it was Sylvia's doing. "It's complicated." Glython, on his knees, murmured to the stone slab, "The drawing of Deucalion done by Sylvia. Did it mean adoration and affection, or was it respect? If not even that, was it just a phase from childhood? He didn't even want to make a distinction or even think about it, for that matter. He closed his eyes for a moment. "I think I lost you because I deserved it, Sierra." As a father, he wanted to deny reality, but Glython was a realist through and through. "Again, I've come up with a method you wouldn't like." Eventually, when he opened his eyes once more, a dark smile appeared on his distorted lips. "But I don't think it's bad. In the end, thanks to you, our child and clan will become even greater." Glython placed a single flower on her tombstone. "You must have left me since you're tired of me, but I am an Iliade." Sierra didn't want to be buried in their family's territory. Until her very last breath, she regretted becoming the wife of an old man obsessed with magic. "Whether you were sick of me or hated me, your bloodline would never change." Just as Eucline annihilated demons, Leviron reigned over the seas and Freydin melted in the heat. For Iliade, ambition itself was their blood. The child you love, after all, bears the Iliade lineage. If she had a suitable enemy, an opponent she would want to destroy, Sylvia could grow faster than now. She could get closer to becoming an archmage at a much quicker state. That ordeal would be enough to make her stronger than she could stand. "You don't have to forgive me. You don't have to understand." Glython knew that better than anyone. If I could be her fuel, I would gladly throw myself into her fire. Sylvia's brilliant blonde hair and innate temper were the same as the description of the ancient members of their clan. She was a jewel born with the thickest Iliade blood. Her existence itself served as the embodiment of their lineage. So this time, a secret desire that had been passed down from generation to generation throughout their ancestries, 200-year history, the archmage position. Some called it obsession and despised it as obstinacy, but Glython always thought his life was only a vessel made for it. Be the fuel. Glython remembered Sierra's death. Deucalion's hands weren't clean of her downfall. He wouldn't be able to proudly say he wasn't involved in her end. No. Even if Glython were to say Deucalion killed his wife, he wouldn't be able to refute it. That was the truth, after all, much like death and murder being the fate of Iliade and Eucline. "Thanks to you, whom my daughter loves, we will be able to make our desire come true." No matter what Sylvia felt toward Deucalion, that would all be firewood to the Iliade flames. She would become a more intense light than she was now, rising like the sun that illuminated the world. If that still wasn't enough, if even his dead wife's body proved insufficient, he was willing to give his life for that cause. "Deucalion killed you, Sierra. We need to use that information to our advantage." A torch that burned fiercely, damaging itself. Such was the Iliade resolution. Early morning, inside Ren's car, I looked at the seat next to me. Luina forced her gaze out the car's window as a teardrop fell from her eye. I didn't pity her even a bit. Nevertheless, I showed a little sympathy by forcibly using my experience as Kim Woojin. "Don't be too upset." She quickly turned her head. "For 5 years, you have been given the opportunity to grow within the boundaries of Eucline. You can call it a blessing." "A bee blessing?" She sounded astonished, so much so that she stuttered, but I didn't care. Her history was quite impressive. She graduated from the academy early, was recommended by the former chairman, and started working at a magic tower 4 years earlier than most. As far as I knew, though, Luina's last days weren't that great. If their weakening started immediately, the McQueen family would be attacked. Hence, it might actually be safer for her to be by my side. 5 years isn't even that long. In terms of salary, you'll be making about $400 million a year. Can you make 400 million a year on your own? If you think you can, you're not objective enough and should change your mindset. Luna bit her lips in silence. Not long after, the car arrived at her mansion. I'll also recommend you as a visiting professor. There will be nothing more to achieve where you work, so just work in the Imperial University Tower. Luna opened the door and set her feet on the ground. You know, she then looked at me. I was already thinking about doing that. Slam, Luna closed the door. I opened the window, beckoning to her as she retreated to her mansion. Stop. What's wrong, boss? Luna was sarcastic. Again. What do you mean, boss? I stared at Luna quietly. She came closer while mocking me and closed the car door again. Slam. It wasn't much different from her first attempt. Again. Humph, slam. Again. My voice grew serious. Luna abruptly stopped herself from speaking. She then eventually opened it again and this time closed it quietly. Good work. It was only then that I praised her. Answer me. Thank you, boss. Are you done? I am. We left immediately. Luna, reflected in the rearview mirror, was staring at it as Ren drove away. I couldn't even imagine how she felt, having to endure such a humiliating pledge as a wizard. On a sunny Monday, with the summer sun brightening up the whole world, they held a training session at the Mountain of Darkness. Due to recent incidents, it had been called the Devil's Mountain and was subjected to shunning. However, guidelines came directly from the Imperial family. Be sure to train at least once a month. Avoiding fear should never be part of a wizard's arsenal. If you avoid the devil, one day you won't be able to fight the devil again. It was the order of Emperor Sophian. It's free practice. If anything happens, report it to my steel. Fortunately, Deculine was the one in charge today. Deculine levitated wood steels all over the Mountain of Darkness. If anything happened, they could ask them for assistance. It was one of the versatile uses of wood steel that had been endowed with Midas's hand. Yeah. The debutantes felt cheerfully relieved. His combat ability was already proven. Therefore, they had believed that no matter what monsters, beasts, ghosts, or demons appeared, Head Professor Deculine would easily kill them. Even the chairman evaluated his fighting power as just below hers. Their training started. Hey, beggar, what are you doing there? At a river on the side of the mountain, Ephraim turned her head while catching a fish. Lucia's gang was laughing at her. Fishing. Who doesn't know that? Why are you behaving like that? Are you trying to show off your lack of financial stability? It's because I want to eat it. Are you stupid? Sigh. They didn't know how delicious the fish caught in the Mountain of Darkness was and how much it helped one's mana. Gosh, that beggar. Hey, I'll give you money, so just buy something to eat. I'll take it, thank you. What? Wow, look at her. Oh, just piss off. The nobles passed by Ephraim, shocked. She would have felt fortunate if that was all they did, but the stone supporting her suddenly moved. A splash. She fell into the stream, the sound of their laughter echoing not far away. Gosh, I really hate them. Ephraim sighed and grabbed her harpoon again. With it, she caught 2 fish. I feel lucky. She removed their guts, removed their scales, skewered them, and made a bonfire to cook them with. While practicing her survival skills, a strange sensation crossed her mind. Her whole body tingled as if static electricity surged up from within her. What was that? Her intuition made her feel like her temples were about to burst. Ephraim stood up. Pat, pat, slurp. Oh, I'm starting to drool. She sat down again at the sound of the fish being cooked. As she did, a nearby bush swayed and an uninvited guest appeared beyond it. Who's there? Don't do anything weird, I'm watching you. Glaring at her, she soon identified the approaching figure. Arrogant Ephraim, she squinted at her. Sylvia? What are you doing here? Ephraim tilted her head. What? Only a few hours have passed. Did our training session end already? Stupid. Training isn't the problem here. Sylvia paused for a moment and watched the meat being cooked. Following her gaze, Ephraim held out one of the 2 skewers to her. Want to eat? It tastes good. Forgetting what she was going to say, Sylvia sat on a small boulder. Her clothes looked so dirty it was as if she had been here for quite some time. You can have it. I cooked it properly. Okay. The 2 ate together. Chomp. Ephraim took a bite and her body trembled with ecstasy. Sylvia quietly closed her eyes. It's so good. Their meal proved that fish in the Mountain of Darkness were very tasty. Not as much as a rohawk, though. Second best, then. Chomp, chomp. They chowed down on their food hurriedly. Chapter 58. Mountain of Darkness Training. The purpose of this training is to develop your practical skills as a wizard. The Mountain of Darkness's mana concentration today isn't that strong. Hence, there's very little chance for powerful demons to appear. Still, for safety reasons, entry is restricted from an altitude of 500 m or higher. The debutantes must earn a total of 10 Mountain of Darkness training points. There are only 6 of these opportunities per semester, so please work hard. 1. Magic Ingredients Analysis 3 or more pharmaceutical/magic material analysis reports, 1 point per 3. 2. Magical Phenomena Observation records of experiencing spacetime or ideas/abstract phenomena. 2 points each. 3. Beast Confrontation, the corpse of a beast or a document to prove its killing. 2 points each. Magical Realization, write and submit a report on the growth you achieved in the Mountain of Darkness. 1 point. Maximum of 1 report. If you come across an unexpected outsider, be sure to report it to your advisor. Mountain of Darkness Training. The unidentified man grabbed one of the papers he found scattered at the Mountain of Darkness, his beard-covered lips twisting upward. Training. It reminds me of the old times. The paper in his hand soon caught fire, spreading to the corpses around him. Prior to their deaths, they used to be the agents sent by the Imperial Intelligence Agency to chase him down. The paper and the corpses strewn around him were reduced to ashes, leaving no trace behind. I'm sorry, but there was nothing I could do. I have to live. The man started to walk away, leaving behind the barrier of chaos he created, which was still up and running perfectly. However, he soon noticed a distinct mana presence so pure it seemed to captivate his mind. He blinked out of curiosity, looking in its direction. The spirit of the wind delivered its fragrant scent to him. I guess I'm way too old now. I find interest in everything. Unable to contain himself, the man mumbled lowly as he changed his path. Mountain of Darkness was a dangerous area on the outskirts of the Imperial University Tower. It was so remote, it was almost like an uninhabited island. It contained huge amounts of mana, allowing magic forces to appear occasionally, and its magical phenomena to become extraordinary and bizarre. Due to its environmental conditions, however, fish raised in its premises weren't only delicious, but also nutritional and filled with calories. Ah, this is life. The fish's taste lingered in her mouth, as the feeling of fullness and drowsiness enveloped her. Ephraim looked at Sylvia as she rubbed her smooth tummy. What happened to you, though? Sylvia, who had been dozing off, became alert again. Time messed up, but you probably didn't realize that. Messed up? I've been wandering for 20 hours. What? 20 hours? No way, the sun is still up. Sylvia then drew a 3-colored metronome with magic. It ticked every second, signaling the passage of time. This is how I determined it. This device moved exactly 72,653 times, 20 hours, 10 minutes, 53 seconds. I believe you. Your clothes serve as proof of that. Ephraim pondered about it, then nodded. Sylvia wasn't the type to become so dirty in just 3 or 4 hours. I didn't know. Is it a magical phenomenon? You're an idiot. I felt it too, all right. First, let's find a wood steel and inform Dequilline. Sylvia showed a rather dissatisfied face. Her eyes, which had narrowed down to a line, stared at Ephraim. Arrogant Ephraim. Sigh, now what? Professor Dequilline is not your friend. At that, Ephraim laughed, finding her remarks ridiculous. Right, Sir Professor Dequilline. Sir Head Professor told us to report anything to his wood steel if something happened. One should be nearby. Let's go. She walked along the stream. Sylvia followed her. Not long after, they found a wood steel shuriken hovering in the air. Is this Dequilline's cherished? Arrogant Ephraim. Sir Professor's cherished item? Up close, she couldn't help but notice its strange shape. Was it an icicle with 2 sharp ends or a straight crystal? Regardless, she tapped it. Hello, can you hear me? She waited for a moment. A reply resonated not long after. What? Phew. Sighing in relief, she then addressed Sylvia. You speak. Sylvia shook her head, not wanting to let him know that she was lost. What? Reluctantly, Ephraim spoke on their behalf. There seems to be an ongoing magical phenomenon. I think time is messed up. I see. Yes. Click. Their line of communication was terminated. Confused, she sent another signal to it. Hello, Professor. I said we're currently under a magical phenomenon. So, what? You're in a training session. Go figure it out yourself. If you're experiencing a magical phenomenon, then write a report about it. Their communication was cut off once more, leaving Ephraim dumbfounded. Sylvia shrugged, seemingly conveying she was somewhat proud. I think it's because it's you. Gosh. Ephraim's expression distorted. Forget it. If this is working, isn't the time okay? I think the area around the river is fine. That's not it. An unidentified voice rang out, causing the two to turn in the direction it came from, their guard already up due to their surprise. Rustling, making his way through the bushes, a robed, middle-aged man appeared. My barrier caused this chaos in time. It seems that you were unlucky enough to get caught in it too. I'm sorry. Fireballs clustered behind Ephraim while Sylvia deciphered the barrier at once. You're savages, huh? Why do you find it necessary to display aggression when all I'm doing is explaining things? He showed no hostility toward them. Rather, he just seemed to find them interesting. Who are you? Ephraim asked, still vigilant. The middle-aged man jumped up and approached them swiftly. He was as tall as D'Quilin, and his body looked well-trained. He smiled warmly at them. Nice to meet you. I am Merkin, and this staff serves as proof of my identity. You're both wizards, so you can see it, right? The fragments of the world tree. Their eyes widened. Those who lived in the Gahala Desert on the southeastern edge of the continent had rather foreign names. Among them, the most famous and notable wizards were Damakin, Merkin, and Rohakan. Merkin was known as the son of Damakin's younger brother. He was a relative of the Archmage, Mountain of Darkness entrance. The debutantes' training started at noon, and by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they returned and reported their performances to this activity's supervisors. I examined herbs. Okay, excluding D'Quilin, the person in charge, there were 6 supervisors in total, all new professors. They held class rosters in their hands and jotted down the debutantes' training scores. Professors. At that moment, a young knight rushed towards them from the tower, accompanied by a group of police officers. I bring urgent news. What happened? Professor Kelladon asked. Due to his thick lenses and old-fashioned voice tone, he was known as the glasses holder. An emergency report from the Imperial Intelligence Agency just came in. Rohakan is hiding inside the Mountain of Darkness. What? Our Rohakan? Yes, he pretended to be Merkin but was caught by the Intelligence Agency. The professor's eyes widened. Their agents and the police have started pursuing him, and they've also requested the knight's cooperation and assistance. Before he could finish his words, they already began climbing the mountain. Tap, tap, tap. Due to their quick response, they swiftly reached their destination. The number of knights and police officers with them had already doubled. Head professor, something happened. They immediately ran up to D'Quilin and informed him. Sitting on a chair on the mountainside and reading a book, he raised his head. Rohakan is right here in the Mountain of Darkness. His reaction was strange. Even though he had heard the Rohakan's formidable name, he remained calm. No, more accurately, he looked like he was bothered by the smell of their sweat more than by the presence of a dangerous individual. By any chance? Do you not know who Rohakan is? How could I not? Oh, I'm sorry. He knew who he was. He even knew his current notoriety. He was the worst criminal of their time, a wanted criminal who had earned the title Black Beast, which had only been given to 10 people on the continent thus far. Main quest. Rohakan's story. Overview the story of Rohakan, goal encounter with Rohakan. Compensation 1 item catalog store currency +1. He also occupied a place in the main quest. Rohakan wasn't a villain. Rather, he was one of the keys that would lead this main quest to the end, and someone who could never die until the final boss. We will proceed with the search. Would you like to join us? The knight Lawain asked. D'Quilin looked at him intently as he closed his book. Fine. But I'll move alone. I wouldn't recommend doing that. Do you really know who Rohakan is? That's right. He's the infamous murderer who killed dozens of Imperial wizards. A crowd of professors, police, and knights tried to stop Deucalion. You'll all just be a burden. I'm telling you to piss off nicely. But he just cut through them all with disdain. There was no choice but to do so. He was Deucalion, after all. He had to kick them out. However, everyone who had no way of knowing that was speechless at his overflowing, self-confident, borderline arrogant attitude. I see. Okay then. Eventually, the knights, led by Lawain, clenched their teeth and passed by him. The professors and the police bowed their heads with slightly uncomfortable faces. The whole area grew quiet at that point. Deucalion moved in solitude, just as he declared he would. Even so, the efficiency of his search was superior to others. Move. In the mountains, his wood steels quickly scattered. Resonating with them, he easily found Rohaken's location. The overriding goal was to find Rohaken before those knights. That bastard became the head professor. What kind of trick did he use? Crackle. Merkin basked in the warmth of the bonfire blazing in front of him. Ephraim nodded, and Sylvia bit her lower lip slightly. Do you know Professor Deucalion well? Of course. He used to be my disciple, after all. What? Ephraim and Sylvia's eyes widened. Merkin laughed bitterly. What? Is it that surprising? You should be able to tell that much just by looking at my name. When did you teach him? Ephraim continued to pry while Sylvia remained silent. It was one of the ways nobles used commoners. About 20 years ago. At that time, he was still really young, and I was in need of money back then. Hence, I became his magic educator. How was he back then? No one knew about Deucalion's childhood. It would be an unofficial story that could never be heard anywhere else in the world. At Ephraim's urging, Merkin stroked his beard. He was a prodigy. Despite his age, he quickly mastered college courses. His heart wasn't kind, though. It was probably due to the pressure he felt from his parents, but he had no empathy or compassion. Merkin frowned as he recalled the past. While wizards usually are like that, he was particularly worse than them. I even theorized that he was the perfect embodiment of the theory that claims human nature is fundamentally evil. At that cold evaluation, Ephraim's jaw dropped. Sylvia expressed her discontent. He is one of the most talented and famous professors in the world of magic right now. That guy? Yes. How? I've cut ties with the world for 5 years, but still. Sylvia took a wizard journal out. It contained an article covering an interview with the chairman about Deucalion, an anecdote about how he broke the devil's barrier, and so on. Merkin took it and read the article. What's that now? Just below Adrian? Professor Deucalion's actual combat power, I think, is just below mine. It was amazing, Chairman Adrian said, addressing Deucalion's abilities. He's quite a practical person, both politically and magically. Merkin smirked. She became the chairman at such a young age, but it seems she's already gone senile. I don't think that's the case at all. That bastard's talent was nothing out of the ordinary. That's contradictory. Sylvia intervened. Merkin tilted his head. Contradictory? He was a prodigy. Why wouldn't he have talent? That's stupid. Ha ha ha. Merkin laughed and looked at Sylvia, the fires in his eyes flashing brightly. You're a prodigy and a genius, blonde girl. Deucalion was too, but he had clear limitations. I found that out almost as soon as I met him. That's right. Ephraim nodded. The contents she had read in her father's letters were coming out. Sylvia didn't like Ephraim acting like that. Just think about it. What if a child, praised for being a prodigy, suddenly feels he's becoming more ordinary as he grows up? What if he sees children who were worse than him getting ahead of him? What if he imagined that someday they would laugh at him, who used to look down on them? Merkin recalled the old days. He was a pretty sad little boy. However, considering what he did, he didn't feel pity. Instead, as usual, he ended up thinking, I wish he'd suffer an even worse fate. I thought he couldn't take it anymore. It was a fate that no one could easily endure in the first place. From then on, Deucalion slowly fell apart. But looking at these articles, 2 possibilities come to mind. Possibilities? Yes, all of this is either a scam, a hoax, or... Merkin laughed quietly as he pondered about it. Has he been working hard endlessly? Working hard? Ephraim raised her eyebrows. Sylvia also looked curious. No matter how much they thought about it, they couldn't imagine Deculine working hard at all. Yes, the guy isn't a genius. I'm certain of that. However, his diligence and hard work can be considered a talent in a way. The Deculine that Merkin remembered was diligent, at least when he was young. He spared no effort to get better by himself. Of course, I'm not sure if this thought itself is him deceiving everyone, but... Merkin tapped the article Sylvia had given him. If he had really grown this much, he must have worked so hard he practically drove himself to the brink of death. I don't know how much effort he made, but it must have been at a level that only he and no other being could endure. Ephraim, silently listening to his words, had a hard time believing him. Did Deculine take away her father's theory and committed unforgivable sins as part of his efforts? If that effort was enough to overcome my talent, well, that pretty guy must have worked hard enough to put an entire construction crew to shame. However, Ephraim soon realized that no matter how much she wanted to deny it, Deculine had definitely made a theoretical advancement. If so, he might have tried relentlessly to absorb her father's theory. During those 3 years, he might have learned and embodied the entire legacy her father left. Perhaps he recognized her father with the most humble attitude and devoted himself to it. Still, don't trust him too much. Diligence does not mean character, after all. Sylvia, on the other hand, looked down. From the beginning, she thought that Deculine was a sculpture made of talent, that he was someone like her. Hence, she felt a little strange. Subtle emotions tickled her heart. If, as Merkin said, he was a man who worked desperately, if effort alone made him the way he was now. Sylvia placed her hands on her chest, feeling her heart beating thunderously. Now, enough about the past. What about you two? Don't you want me to pass on my teachings to you too? Teachings. The debutantes, immersed in their respective thoughts, trembled at the same time. Yes, my teachings are a bit special. Aren't you curious how I grasped Deculine's talent? Yes, yes, yes. Yes, they immediately nodded, the teachings of the Archmage's relative. They couldn't let this pass. They had to get their hands on it, even if it meant breaking a limb or two. However, there's a condition. I have a wife and children. Deliver this letter to them. Merkin pulled a letter out of his pocket. Ephraim hastily took it. Yes, I'll do it now, tell me. Heh, greedy. All right, all right. My teachings? Watch this. Merkin spread his palms out, and spirits rose above his hands. Although small in size, they astonished the two. Zing. They were speals of light, existences that combined the attributes of all 4 elements, the size of a small sphere. Both of them circled the skies before seeping into Sylvia and Ephraim's bodies. Ugh! Ephraim grabbed her chest as Sylvia calmly took a deep breath. Slowly and softly take it in. Don't make a fuss. Be calm and still like the blonde girl. Don't call me blonde girl. My name is Sylvia. Quiet. You shouldn't talk, blonde girl. She felt dissatisfied, but she soon closed her eyes as she felt like a hot ball of fire was burning her lower stomach. Breathing deeply, they connected their bodies with the fireball. Phew, phew, I think it worked. Ahahaha. Merkin laughed in admiration. Indeed, you both contain great talent, as I expected. Deculine took a spiel and suffered for 3 days and 3 nights, but the 2 children integrated it into their systems in under 15 minutes. Those spiels will help you grow from within your bodies. My teachings are fuel for the talented but fever for the ordinary. As the 2 opened their eyes, Ephraim looked at the letter in her hand and asked, Why don't you deliver this letter yourself, though? Us adults often have our own circumstances, don't we? At that time, Sylvia, who was sitting on the stone floor, spoke. Tell me more about Professor Deculine's childhood. Are you curious about him? Yes. I don't have much time, but finding such talented children after so long thrilled him. Above all, it seemed that no one had broken through his barrier yet. Fine. There are a lot of pretty funny episodes while I was teaching him. Sylvia clenched her fists silently, and Ephraim slyly smiled. Some embarrassing stories first? I was about to tell them. Deculine, doesn't that guy follow etiquette splendidly? I tested if he would keep it even when I was pooping. Merkin continued to talk, even though he knew he shouldn't. The children's reactions were just far too filled with enthusiasm for him to stop. Ephraim looked genuinely interested, and Sylvia even took notes. However, here you are." They heard a voice not far away from them, its gelid tone cutting through the atmosphere like a blade. Ephraim and Sylvia followed the direction it came from as chills rose from their backs. A dark shadow stood amid the woods. His face was infinitely cold, and steel fluttered behind him. Tap, tap, D'Quilin walked slowly. For the two of them, his graceful movements were scarier than any disaster they could possibly face. Soon, he stood at a reasonably close distance as Sylvia and Ephraim froze in a cold sweat, fearing how much he had heard. Right. It's been a while. Merkin's face turned dark. "Yes, it's been a long time." D'Quilin looked into his eyes and answered. "Rohakan." The whole world knew of that name, considering he was one of the worst criminals of all time and the most wanted enemy of the Empire. Empress assassin Rohakan. Upon hearing that name, Sylvia and Ephraim simply tilted their heads. Chapter 59. The mountain remained drenched in darkness and sung upon by a desolate wind. Only the bonfire's embers served as a source of light within it, its flames rising like hazes. I looked at Rohakan, who didn't avoid my gaze. D'Quilin used to be his student, but it wasn't as special as it sounded. D'Quilin's past was like a spider web. Hence, although this encounter was sudden, it was also inevitable. Among the named characters throughout the Empire, those unrelated to him were rare. "Rohakan?" Ephraim turned him and asked, her voice trembling. "Why you said Rohakan? Then those fragments of the World Tree." Archmage Demakin's treasure was a staff made from the World Tree. Stories about it and him were so famous that they appeared in fairy tales. He made his weapon of choice out of such rare tree branches and gave the remaining fragments to his family. Hence, Ephraim and Sylvia thought Rohakan's staff was from the World Tree. I worked so hard on that barrier. "How did you get through it?" Rohakan scratched the back of his neck. Barrier magic often differed in the series it used depending on its character. For example, barriers that widened the space within it used support series, and barriers that deceived perception used the illusion series. Rohakan's barrier used the illusion series, which I was immune to. Those cheap techniques don't work anymore. "Oh, cheap techniques?" Rohakan's eyes widened. I turned my gaze to Ephraim and Sylvia, standing near him, but Sylvia wasn't there any longer. "I'm here." At some point she had come behind my back. "Ephraim," I called, but Rohakan expressed his surprise before she could move. "Ephraim, are you Ephraim Luna, the daughter of the Luna family?" "Yes. Do you know me?" "Of course I do. Was it 15 years ago?" "Your father's brain was a refreshing shock to me, too. What is he doing these days?" Ephraim's expression hardened. She looked at Sylvia and me, then her gaze fell to the ground. "He passed away." Rohakan's jaw dropped. He looked both apologetic and embarrassed. Rubbing his temples, he said, "That's a pity. His personality was a bit strange, but he was the kind of genius that rarely comes out even in a century." "Ah, debutante Ephraim," I called out to her again. She looked unable to decide at first, but soon approached me. She asked him another question afterward. "Are you really Rohakan, not Merkin?" Rohakan smiled bitterly and nodded. "Yeah, I'm sorry. When I tell people my name, they immediately run away. Merkin's my best friend. I borrowed this staff from him." "Empress assassin Rohakan." "I can't say that's wrong, but back then I had to do it." Rohakan was a friend of the former Emperor Krebame. However, he murdered multiple court wizards and the late Empress. That incident turned him into one of the Empire's enemies. Then? Ephraim groped her stomach, the inside of which was where the spiel of light settled. Rohakan laughed quietly. "My spirit isn't harmful, so don't worry. That way you two will keep your promise?" "Ephraim, Sylvia," I cut off Rohakan's words. "Go back." They hesitated, but there should be no witnesses to the next development. If you get caught up in this, you might die. I urged in the coldest and most domineering voice I could muster. Rohakan groaned. Though they initially stood frozen, they soon nodded. "Go, just follow my steel." To ensure they wouldn't get lost in the barrier, I entrusted my wood steel with guiding them. Sylvia, from behind me, whispered, "Don't lose. Go." There was no way I could lose, but I couldn't win either. We wouldn't fight, after all. If you don't move within 3 seconds, you'll be sanctioned to disciplinary measures. Eferen and Sylvia left, following my steel. Rustle, rustle. The sound of their footsteps grew farther and farther away, and at some point they disappeared. Whoosh! A cold, dry wind blew, causing the hem of my clothes and hair to flutter wildly. Rohakan looked at me with seriousness in his eyes. It sure looks like you worked hard. Your mana's gentle compared to before. Was the quality of mana something that could be improved with effort? You still seem to be getting younger. Rohakan's expression hardened for a moment. I uttered something that penetrated his secret after all, his eyebrows furrowed. Are you trying to pick a fight? I don't want to kill a student of mine. It wouldn't be good to provoke each other. What? I couldn't beat Rohakan. It wasn't because of a lack of growth or the need for a little more time. I probably wouldn't be able to beat him until the day I died. Did it sound like a provocation? It was just a warning. That's temerity. Huh, temerity? However, my body didn't back down. Even if it broke, it would never bend. I couldn't abandon my pride when facing someone so powerful they transcended the world. It was obviously Dakillian's personality, but that was what I liked about it. The world always easily swayed Kim Woojin due to his lack of personal beliefs. Temerity, Tilda? I closed my eyes and grasped the current situation. 15 out of my 20 wood steel were still wandering around the mountain. 157 people are caged within your barrier, and 93 people wander out of it. 23 people want to break it, and 37 have made their way down the mountain. A siege network has already been established to our northeast and southeast, and the Imperial Knights are slowly surrounding the area. I opened my eyes, finding Rohakan's gaze fixed on me. Are you buying time? I have no intention of letting you do that. He conjured mana. With apathy, I replied. Go northwest. The defense there is still a bit weak. The magic he had been preparing was instantly disturbed. His eyes widened so much they looked like they were about to pop out. What? But be warned. This is the last time I let you go. I continued in hopes of making sure he'd be more careful next time. He needed to avoid being killed or caught by the Empire for his atrocities out of his blindness for his children. Rohakan scratched the back of his neck and replied, Is this for old time's sake? I have no affection for the person who killed the Empress Dowager. Okay, of course you wouldn't, but aren't you curious why I'm here? I am. Well, would you believe me? As your teacher, I abandoned you. Have you come to destroy the temple? I asked assertively. Rohakan gasped. You've changed. I don't have time to chat. Leave. Okay. He turned around, but he stopped after a few steps and looked over his shoulder, Dakillian. Yes. Do you believe in God? In a way that was random. However, it was something that penetrated the core of the main quest. I answered. I believe only in myself. I didn't believe in God as Dakillian and as Kim Woojin. That belief had not changed. Ha. Then Rohakan smiled softly. That's a good attitude. Take this. He handed me a book. It is a story about certain fanatics in this world. Read it anytime. Exploration of the Land of Extinction. Description: This exploration book was written by Rohakan. It records the behavior of the fanatics who crossed the Land of Extinction. Category: Special Publication. Effect: I put it in my pocket. Goodbye. He absorbed the element of wind into his body and activated certain great destruction magic. Rumble. Upon its release, it hit the ground several times, ravaging the entire site until the whole area was distorted, as if struck by lightning. After that, he went northwest. I guess it'll start from now on. Little by little, real named were appearing. Empress Slayer Rohakan, Recruit Rodrin, Great Elder D. Zekton. Even Eferen and Sylvia would take at least 2 years to join their tier. The world was wide, and the quest was still only beginning. Complete. The story of Rohakan. Acquired 1 item catalog. Store currency plus 1. The item catalog was a special reward. I thought it was only given to players, but the results stated otherwise. I plan to use this later. That old man is as meticulous as a serpent. As Rohakan left, he destroyed almost the entire area. It wasn't a useless bluff to show off his greatness. I knew what he intended. It was an alibi for the 2 of us. I also called the wood steels to spread all over the place to play along with his plan, beginning my part of the work. Rumble, rumble. 19 pieces of steel tore apart the already crushed earth and vegetation once more. Plants were immediately sliced apart by their rage, and the vicinity of the ground I stood on turned into an indescribable tragedy. Such was the result of releasing my mana forcibly. Dozens of knights climbed up the mountain led by the Knight of the Sacred Heart, Lawain, and the Imperial Knights' deputy commander, Isaac, who joined later. Almost all of the continent's forces gathered in the Mountain of Darkness. As they ran in search of traces, they soon sensed powerful recurring waves of magic. "It's coming from the north. Follow me." Isaac predicted its epicenter with his unique sensitivity. For him, the barrier was only an obstacle. Not long after, however, they detected a presence coming down the mountain slope. "Who goes there?" They immediately drew their swords and aimed at the figure. Those footsteps approached the knights with no hesitation. Everyone tensed up but soon sighed in relief. "Professor de Killeen." Isaac murmured. "The head professor of the Imperial University Magic Tower, de Killeen." His stride was still full of grace, but he carried fatigue so heavy he couldn't seem to hide it. His appearance had been dirtied up so much as well, based on de Killeen's standards. "What happened up there?" Isaac asked. Standing in front of the knights, de Killeen remained silent for a moment. "Professor, please tell us." De Killeen looked like his pride was hurt, displaying a performance that could deceive anyone. After a while, he said, "I lost him." "Lost? Rohacken?" De Killeen regained his silence. "He went down the mountain, leaving them behind in frustration." Isaac frowned as he stared at his retreating back. "What is he saying? Did he even have the skills to catch Rohacken? That's impossible. He is only arrogant. Come on, let's go up." At Lawain's words, they ran uphill like tireless horses, their strides as swift as the wind. After a short while, it dawned upon them. It was a daunting landscape that rendered them speechless. In front of them was a pit of absolute destruction. Every inch of the area had been mercilessly decimated, with craters stretched across the lands as far as their eyes could see. Throughout their vicinity, ashes, traces of magic, and drops of blood were scattered and mixed. Would hell look like this? The knights were momentarily stunned by the violent scene, but Deputy Commander Isaac, who came to his senses first, yelled. If their battle resulted into this, then Rohacken must be injured. Divide into 3 squads and pursue him. Considering Rohacken's strength, they formed a unit and were divided into 3 groups. They went into the northwest, north, and northeast directions, respectively. The police found Sylvia and Ephraim as soon as they came down the mountain and immediately took them to the station. "Gosh, you say nothing happened?" At the interrogation room of the Investigation Division and the Violence Division, the curly-haired investigator asked Ephraim. She nodded. "Yes." "That's impossible. You met Rohacken, so there's no way nothing happened." Ephraim was being questioned. Sylvia was with them when they first came, but Sylvia's interrogation ended in 3 seconds. "Nothing really happened." "That's a lie." "I see lies in your face, kid." He chuckled as she tightened the hem of her robe. She was still carrying Rohacken's letter in her pocket. "If you don't talk, you might go to jail, Tilda." She clenched her teeth. She wasn't the type to squeal or confess, even though it was Rohacken. With a sinister smile, he laughed in disdain. "Hey, are you there? Let's start the body search." "What, you can't be serious?" "What?" "You keep telling lies, so we have to at least search you." "I am not a criminal. A body search is—" "You don't know anything, kid. It doesn't matter if you're a wizard from the Imperial University Tower. Hiding even the smallest detail about a dark beast-level criminal is a crime in itself. Hey. Can't you hear me? Come here and begin the body search. Bang." As the investigator yelled, the door to the interrogation room violently jerked open, almost breaking it, causing him to turn in surprise. "What the hell? The interrogation isn't over yet. Who opened the door?" He soon came face to face with the approaching nobleman, head professor de Killeen. The investigator kept his mouth shut as de Killeen looked at him and Ephraim alternately before coming back to his senses. "Oh, head professor, I just heard the report of your battle with Rohacken. Are you okay?" "What brings you here?" "What brings me here?" His eyes sharply narrowed down on him, making it seem like he was interrogating the investigator all this time. "Why, yes, you took 2 of my students here." Oh, Tilda, yes, she is now comfortably resting on the couch outside. He replied, but Deucalion already knew that. Sylvia was sitting on the couch, sleeping. However, he had to close this case in such a way that wouldn't leave any gaps. I'm certain I said too. Yes. Come, Ephraim, Deucalion said, causing the bewildered investigator to jump up. You can't. Deucalion's silence dominated the place. Frightened by the pressure he emitted, the curly-haired guy continued without being asked to do so. That kid is hiding something. What is it? I was about to. Deucalion stared at the investigator silently. His blue eyes had the talent to make people feel suffocated. Name, he said. Your name? That's, don't make me ask you thrice. Deucalion's gaze swept him up and down. Arrogant? I'm sorry, my name is Ekron. At that moment, the person in charge rushed in as if he had just heard the news. Oh, Professor, you're here, hey bastard, what are you doing? Bo, he's the one who fought fiercely with that black beast. Oh, yes, I was about to do that. The two bowed at the same time. Showing no signs of interest in them, Deucalion talked to his student instead. Ephraim, get up. Okay. Ephraim stood up timorously. Sylvia had woken up and was waiting near the interrogation room by then. Let's go. Goodbye. Deucalion walked down the aisle, and the police bowed their heads as he passed by them. Sylvia seemed familiar with the treatment, but Ephraim wasn't used to it. There were two cars outside. One belonged to Sylvia, and the other belonged to Deucalion. Ephraim. Before getting into the car, Deucalion turned to Ephraim. Yes. Did that investigator take anything from you? No. Ephraim grabbed the letter in the pocket inside her robe. Deucalion nodded as if satisfied. Good job. If you made a promise, you have to keep it. Deucalion got into his car. But before he could close its door, Ephraim asked. How did things go? Sylvia also seemed curious. Deucalion took a deep breath and answered, You don't need to know. Deucalion's voice was drenched in fatigue. It was the first time Ephraim and Sylvia heard him sound like that. Go. Don't tell anyone about today. Deucalion's driver closed the passenger door, got into the car, and left. Sylvia got into her own. Ephraim was alone on the sidewalk, looking at the car. Do you want to ride? Oh, it's okay, I'll walk. I get motion sickness if I ride in a carriage or a car. Okay. Vroom, Sylvia's car's engine started. Both vehicles quickly disappeared over the road, and Ephraim, watching with envy, moved her legs. Sigh. Tonight's wind was a bit heavy. She had been through too dramatic a situation, and she heard too many stories. Her whole body felt like it was drenched in mushy waters. Ha! Laughter came out of her lips. For the first time in her life, she met a person who recognized her father, and it was Rohachan of all people, the worst criminal of their time. If I don't deliver his letter, my body won't explode, right? It was a complicated day for Ephraim. That's really suffocating. I want to cry. Sylvia stared at the scenery outside her open car window, but soon closed her eyes as she felt the wind blowing in. She recalled his voice, which she had once heard in Berkt. This is nothing to be surprised about. My weapon and magic are specialized in killing. What this world needs, Sylvia, is a talent in wizardry like yours. Magic wasn't made to kill people. It would be best if you remember that. Deucalion's words. At the time, she thought he was just praising her talent. Now that she had realized his efforts, however, it felt a little different. Chapter 60. Deep in the night, the full moon scattered the shallow fog as Sylvia dove deep into her thoughts in their mansion's backyard. Today, she found out why he was the head professor and had amazing theoretical and educational skills. What if a child, praised for being a prodigy, suddenly feels he's becoming more ordinary as he grows up? Lacking talent, he worked harder than anyone else and walked the royal road of theory. As his intuition faltered, he immersed himself in logic as sophisticated as cogs. What if he sees children who were worse than him getting ahead of him? Sylvia recalled Rohachan's words, the sadness to doubt one's own talents, the fear of being blocked by an impenetrable wall, the fear that someone worse than oneself would overtake them. Would I be able to overcome it all? What if he imagined that someday they would laugh at him, who used to look down on them? She imagined Ephraim becoming a better wizard than her. Sylvia shut her mouth and puffed up her cheeks. Arrogant Ephraim. The possibility was slim, but just thinking about it made her dizzy, so it was even more surprising. Deculine overcame this feeling with hard work. Finishing her thoughts, Sylvia immersed herself in meditation again. She breathed quietly and released her mana, causing colorful shades to appear in her eyes. Eventually, she materialized the origin. The darkness of the night faded and light entered. Flowers bloomed on the ground and butterflies flew as a warm wind blew, the grass gently swaying. The landscape was constructed with the three primary colors. The image she embraced had dyed her garden. In this realm, her color was the law of nature. Sylvia quietly closed her eyes amid the magical field. She once heard of something called the wizard's fortune. The first was innate talent. The second was a worthy effort. The third was one's own muse. She already knew her talent, she wasn't lazy, but she used to think she didn't need the third. Muse. For wizards, the third was essentially called inspiration or stimulus. Now Sylvia understood. Her third fortune just came a little late under the dark dawn. I sat at the entrance to the mountain of darkness and opened my catalog of items. Beginner Item Catalog 1. Record Notepad 2. Character Magnifying Lens 3. Incubator. A catalog was, in the essence of the word, a list of goods. I could consume an item catalog to get one of these items. However, there was nothing in it that would have a dramatic effect on the gameplay. The items in it only offered a bit of convenience or uniqueness. Play button 2. Character Magnifying Lens. As soon as I chose option 2, the A4-sized catalog took its shape. A single lens with no frames or anything. It was embarrassing, but it became like a monocle when I roughly put it on my eyelids with psychokinesis. Crumble, crumble. At that moment, I turned my head in the direction where I heard someone walking through the grass. Ah! When our eyes met, I heard a startled voice and saw her distinctive white armor and cloak. The magnifying lens identified one of her most important attributes. Eternal Winter. Rating, unique. Description, an eternally frozen season, a flower that blooms more brilliantly the harsher its environment becomes. Her unique grade attribute, Eternal Winter, Julie said. Didn't know you were here as well. Am I not allowed to be here? I asked coldly on purpose. Julie scratched the back of her neck as if embarrassed. No, but I've heard the rumors. I thought you were going to rest today because you just fought Rohacken. The chairman personally asked me to monitor the Mountain of Darkness. It was an order from the Imperial family, too, just in case Rohacken came back or was plotting something around this area. Is the commander of the Knights also supposed to be in charge of such chores? Being the leader, I take the lead. Then, according to you, if a war breaks out, the commanders will all have to die first. Ah, that's a good question. The answer to that is described in the 3rd volume of the Knight Manual. I'll give it to you later. I made a chair using psychokinesis and basic earth control. Julie glanced at me slowly and sat. She kept glancing at me without a word. Do you have anything to say? No, I nodded. The wind blew in from the dark, carrying with it the thick scent of mana and flora. Out of nowhere, Julie asked, is Her Majesty's lesson next week? Usually, the date of our classes was based on the Emperor's will, but traditionally they were held once or twice a month. That being said, our next lesson was next Monday. You said you have nothing to say. Julie shut her mouth, looking into the woods instead. Every time she heard a sound, her ears perked up. She seemed to be working hard. I looked at my pocket watch, 1 a.m. There were still 3 hours left of my shift, Julie. Yes, I'm bored. Would you like to play chess? I am on a mission now. Julie firmly shook her head. I got worked up for no reason. Mission, I wonder what kind of idiot thinks Rohacken will come back here again. Julie had a guilty expression on her face. She took a breath and held it. I smirked. It's you. Oh, that's? You're too stupid. This is basic post-incident measures. The perpetrator might return to the crime scene. Rohacken is a criminal, but he is not the perpetrator. If it were me, I wouldn't guard the entrance but scour the entire mountain. My top priority would be to find out why he entered in the first place. Julie blushed. I laughed and spent time reading books. 4 a.m. Freyham Knights Commander Julie, you may withdraw. Words came out of Julie's crystal ball. It was Isaac's voice. Yes, all right. Julie, who answered politely, immediately turned to me. A chessboard came out of Julie's backpack, but I pretended I didn't see it. Julie glanced at me. However, when I didn't respond, she started playing alone. Tap, 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 hearing the strangely moving objects felt funny to me. Reluctantly, I looked at her chessboard, realizing it was the gift I had given before. If you do it like that, you'll lose. Is that so? Julie answered. I closed my book and turned my chair towards her. With the chessboard between us, I continued speaking while facing Julie. Listen carefully. I will teach you starting with the basics. Julie put her hands together and nodded. Yes. Serious enthusiasm vigorously enveloped her expression. It made me think she wanted to be a chess master. The next morning, I received a call from the chairman. It was an order to go up to her personal office on the 99th floor. Professor, mail has been delivered to you. Before I could leave, however, Alan handed me a box with the support number 39,953. It was from the wizards I sponsored. Thank you. It's nothing. I picked it up and headed up on the elevator. The entirety of the floor served as the chairman's office. After a few moments, the elevator door opened, revealing a huge office desk. The chairman was lying on it and sleeping. To describe it in more detail, she didn't have her head on it. Her whole body was lying on it, curled up like a shrimp while sleeping with a large cone hat as a blanket. CRRR. The view reminded me of the chairman's lineage. ZZZZZ. As of right now, it might be a fact that only I knew, but the chairman was a hybrid between a fairy and a human. Her bloodline was as rare as the giants. It was so unique she was probably the only one left of her kind in the world. CRRR. The reason she slept on a desk was that fairies liked high places. ZZZZZ. Ugh. Her snore was annoying. I suspected she had a breathing problem, but I didn't disturb her. Instead, I sat quietly in a nearby chair and waited. I had something to do anyway. I opened the mailbox. And, looking forward to the contents, I put my hand in. There was only one letter in it. Why? I shook the mailbox up and down, just in case, but only dust fell from it. I probably supported 30 people. Even though I did so through anonymous donations, I gave more than enough for them to send a letter of reciprocity. But wizards had always been like this. They predicated on the assumption that they would return the sponsorship itself in the future. I opened the only letter I received. Dear anonymous sponsor, greetings. I am Epheren of the Luna family. I'm also a humble debutante whose talents you recognized. I laughed. That name was familiar. Extremely so. Our family's residence is just a small hut, and even though we live under such dire circumstances, we have more debts we can handle. Debtors come and go from time to time. I grew up as the daughter of an aristocrat only in name, and I was used to a life of solitude and independence. Surrounded by nature, I ate frogs and rabbits, and fishing and hunting became some of my specialties. However, the content was serious and her writing was neat. I calmed down. There was a time when I thought that if I tried hard, everything would work out. But this world isn't as calm a sea as I thought. Rather, it turned into a rampaging wave in an instant, pushing and breaking me. My father took his own life, which made my grandma and grandpa cry. I felt like I could hear Epheren's voice through the letter. I went out to the tower to fulfill my father's dream and to meet the expectations of my grandmother and grandfather, but every day feels like I'm living on thin ice. It was your support that saved me from that despair. Your donation gave me warmth while I lived under the cold, gelid sky. Sponsor. In the southern grasslands, there is a wild boar called Rohawk. They run freely in the fields and grow up eating only Euphren sesame leaves as feed. Rohawk, I muttered unintentionally. ZZZZZ. The chairman opened her eyes sullenly. She looked at me with a sleepy face. You came, when did you come? Why did you come while I was sleeping? The way she talked, drowsy, was markedly different from the usual chairman. I put the letter in my inner pocket. I arrived just now because you called. Oh, right. Yeah. The yawn lasted almost a minute. After that, she slowly wiped away her tears. Yes. Yeon, I wanted to ask you about the progress of the symposium questions. I'm almost done. I'm going to finish it today. Good. The chairman soon spoke as if she was about to sleep again. "Oh, right, the visiting professor was decided to be Luina this time, today's professor welcome ceremony." "Yes, I know, I don't mind." The president's eyes widened, her pupils rising like a cat. "You don't mind? What does that mean? You two had a bad relationship, didn't you?" The chairman liked rumors, especially provocative gossip, that was due to her personality itself, also known as curiosity seeker. "There was just a misunderstanding back then. It's fine now." "No way, you're lying." "Is this why you called me here?" "No, not at all.